Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Spring Hill Heating and Cooling Studios. Ian is here today. Hello, Ian.
What up, what up?
Bill Belichick and the Patriots have broken up. I don't even know the word they're using to describe what happened between BB and RKK, but what really happened is they fired him. As we've told you pretty much the whole season, they were going to fire Belichick. And they did fire Belichick, and it was good the way it happened. I remember when Jeff Fisher got fired from the Titans, and I know that Jeff Fisher had only been here for 15 years, and Bill's been there for 25 or whatever it is. But I remember Jeff Fisher did a press conference, and he did it at St. Thomas Sports Park, and I felt like he was entitled to that. He was entitled to say what it was that he wanted to say. Pete Carroll, same way yesterday. Say what you want to say. Bill Belichick today, say what you want to say. And it's okay. And I certainly think that Bill Belichick deserved that. I was glad that he and Robert at least looked amicable. And I am also glad that there wasn't like anything that came out that, oh, no, this was a mutual parting of the ways. And no, let's just tell it like it is. The Patriots decided to move on. And I got to tell you, Floyd had a bunch of friends in football. But I would say that Bill Belichick, Nick Saban, and Pete Carroll were all right up there at the very top. And yesterday, freaking legends, right? Like in a 24-hour span, Pete Carroll, Bill Belichick, and Nick Saban all out of where they normally are. Saban, of course, being the one to retire. So I want to start on this article in The Athletic today. And I should say before I get onto that we will have the return of the TD Power Hour. Teron Davenport will join us at 3 o'clock. And so we will hear from TD, and he'll finally get his thoughts in on what's going on with the Titans and everything else. And so TD will join us at 3 o'clock today, and it will be good to hear from TD. Obviously, TD situation, we'll let TD be the one to discuss that. But I told TD early on in the process that I was really thinking about him a lot. And, again, we're excited to have TD back in the program. Okay, so I want to get to this article in The Athletic. Joe Rexroad texted me last night about this article that they were going to be dropping, and I was like, well, then just send it to me, Joe. It's like, no. Wake up first thing in the morning and read this article, and it is the article. So I said, okay. So I opened it up, and it was about, again, to summarize, where the disconnect was between Mike Vrabel and the Titans. And I could go line item by line item about, this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened. But the truth is, I'm not even sure I really believe a lot of the article. And it's not that I think that Joe and Diana, who did the article, are not telling the truth. It's that, quite frankly, I don't think the Tennessee Titans tell the truth very often, and I don't think Mike Vrabel tells the truth very often. So it makes it very difficult to figure out what actually happened. Like I saw one of the lines in there was, Amy actually thought about firing Vrabel after last year. Bullcrap. Come on now. But I have 3 big takeaways from this giant Athletic article. Number 1, Joe Rexroad, who co-authored this piece, owes me an apology after calling the Vrabel New England comments a nothing burger. Because it is very clear that the New England comments, when Vrabel went up there, it is very clear that pissed ownership off. When he said, don't take this organization for granted. It's not like this everywhere. And I said on the show, I go, am I reading too much into this when I'm like, is this taking a little bit of a shot at the Titans? And you all called in, text in, oh, no, Jared, you're reaching, you're going for something. You think this is... Well, apparently those comments pissed ownership off pretty bad, and Vrabel did not feel the need to discuss them with ownership, which I didn't think was a very good idea on his part. Secondly, I feel I'm owed an apology from Joe and from everybody else, especially here in the local media that was like, oh, that means nothing. Oh, there you go again. All of you people with your heads shoved firmly up your tushes. Number 2. Mike Vrabel might have worked with Rand Carthon fine. It doesn't sound like, and I said this, when I was hearing on Monday before he was fired, and I said, I don't hear this is about Carthon himself, like that he doesn't like Carthon. It's just that he doesn't like the structure of the organization or whatever. And I don't think, and then Rand Carthon got up there and said, oh, we had a great relationship. I think he probably worked with Rand Carthon fine, but it was obvious from that piece that he never respected Rand Carthon as the GM. I mean, at the beginning, he preferred that Rand would be assistant GM, and that's the most concrete example of it. But we kept talking about it all the time about, oh, yeah, with me and Rand and Chad and A-Rob. And then in the TD article at ESPN, me and Rand and Chad and A-Rob. And then last week, me and Rand and Chad and A-Rob. And I'm like, that's pretty passive-aggressive. Like, that is Vrabelese for I'm minimizing this guy's role. So even though he respected, even though he worked on a daily basis with Rand Carthon, the idea of him respecting Rand Carthon as an equal and as the general manager, and that would have never happened, no matter what. Vrabel did not think that he was qualified to be the general manager when they hired him. Vrabel did not want them to hire him. And so Vrabel was never, ever going to be able to respect Rand Carthon as the GM. Whether that's right or wrong, that's a different discussion, because as you all know, there's a lot of things as far as being a GM that I don't think Rand does very well. But as far as Vrabel is concerned, like, as somebody looking at the management aspect of the team, it's hard to say, we're going to have this great collaboration, knowing that the general manager is not respected by the head coach. And then third, and this is the most important thing from the article because it's the most important thing going forward. Mike Vrabel is in the rearview mirror. Going forward for the Titans, they've got serious communication issues. I'm talking about ownership, I'm talking about the organization, and I'm talking about Vrabel. Vrabel, for instance, doesn't feel the need to address with Amy all the New England stuff, even as it keeps getting mentioned and mentioned and mentioned and mentioned. I asked him about the New England thing at the press conference, and he turned it around on me like, Jared, you will never, ever, ever think like me. But then he didn't feel the need to go to the owner after it was at least discussed publicly to say, hey, just so you know, like, I didn't mean anything about this here. I was just telling the fans, hey, I should have said, instead of, it's not like this everywhere else, I should have said that run that we had is not like everywhere else. And I'm sorry I did that. It's not hard to do. But Vrabel wasn't going to do it. In the Athletic column, it said something along the lines of Vrabel felt the need to, or Vrabel questioned, why do I need to talk about all the speculation all the time? And it's like, because it's okay to reassure someone, specifically who is your boss. It's okay to reassure them of your commitment. And it doesn't take 5 hours to do it. It takes 5 minutes. It's not that hard. And then Amy was reportedly upset with comments Vrabel made, such as believing that he deserved full authority of the team. Vrabel thought that he deserved final say of that roster, which is so ridiculous considering that he's never, ever, ever worked in personnel in his career. But as I said last year, when it came to Mike Vrabel being GM or Mike Vrabel being in charge of the team, I knew Vrabel was going to say, I can do it because I know Vrabel. And so Vrabel did. He went to Amy, according to The Athletic, and said, I can do it. I've earned it. Put me in charge. And apparently that pissed her off. And apparently, again, when they went to hire Rand, and Mike Vrabel said that he thought that Rand would probably be better off being an assistant GM than being the GM, apparently that really pissed her off too. Well, I need to know the context of those conversations. If Amy Adams Strunk is the owner, is talking to Mike Vrabel as the coach, and is saying, Mike, I want the general manager to be in control of this roster. Or I want you and the general manager to be equally as in control. So I'll give you a little veto power here or a little whatever. And again, I think that whole thing's cockamamie anyways, but okay. And Vrabel says, Amy, I think that's bullcrap. I think I deserve to be the one in charge. Well, that's one thing. if she says, Mike, what do you think your role should be? And he says, I think I should be the one who has final say over the roster. Well, that's different. If she tells him, we're going to hire Ran Carthon to be our general manager, and he says, he's not qualified, he's not ready, he should be assistant general manager. Well, I can see how that would upset the owner. But if she said to Mike Vrabel, Mike, what do you think of us hiring Ran Carthon? And Mike saying, look, I liked him when he came in, and I got to know him, a little bit, and he's cool, but I don't know if he's ready for this. Again, that's another thing. If you're asking for his opinion and he gives it to you and you don't like it, that is completely different than you telling him as his boss, this is how it's going to be, and then him arguing against it. But the bigger issue, again, is the communication and the ability to trust. I don't trust the Titans. They lied to all of us about Mike Mularkey, and they lied to Diana on this. Again, Amy really reportedly considered firing Vrabel after last season. It's hard for me to believe. But the communication issues have turned the Tennessee Titans into this constant paranoia, watch your back society. It's almost like I'm watching The Sopranos, and I'm trying to figure out who's going to get whacked next. This cannot be a good thing for the organization. And this is not just an Amy Adams Strunk thing. This is not just a Mike Vrabel, John Robinson, Mike Mularkey power struggle thing. This is Buddy Ryan and Kevin Gilbride punching each other on the sideline. This is Jeff Fisher, Floyd Reese. This is Rustin Webster, Ken Wisenhunt, and Steve Underwood. This is what happened at ownership level when Bud Adams left the team to Tommy Smith, and all of a sudden that other side of the family ran him out of there. It's time for that to end. It is time for just this constant, hey, watch your back. Amy might have liked you yesterday, but she doesn't like you today. It is time for that to end. I can promise you they don't have these issues in Baltimore. I can promise you they don't have these issues in Pittsburgh. The organizations that work successfully are the ones that address their issues. It's not like this in Green Bay. And there was somebody there in Green Bay who wanted to make it that way, and ultimately they got rid of him. So the Titans have got to stop with all this, oh yeah, she was mad at Robinson and Vrabel was the sacred cow. And then she was mad at Vrabel because she wanted to hire Carthon and Vrabel said he didn't like him. And so she got mad about it, and I bet she never brought it up with him. Why not? Why not? It's communication. It's simple. And so if the Titans don't realize this, if the Titans as an organization, Amy and the immediate people under her that maybe have some influence with her, if they don't understand that the way that they do business, the way that they did business with Mike Mularkey, the way they did it with John Robinson, the way they did it with Mike Vrabel, the way that they did it before her, the way that they did it with Jeff Fisher and Floyd Reese, the way that they did it all those years. If they don't realize, go back to Jack Pardee and Buddy Ryan. If they don't realize that this everybody having an agenda and everybody has to watch their back and everybody's got to be nervous all the time of Mount Vesuvius erupting, this organization is never going to get off the ground. They may have a good season, but it is never going to be a year in and year out success. A little fear is okay, right? I fear being a bad radio host, so every day I try really hard. But the idea, the stress of, oh man, if I tell him how I really feel, I might lose my job. Oh man, I don't know how the owner feels about this. Oh man, we lost to the Texans and now she's going to blow a gasket and fire everybody. That's not acceptable. And so the Tennessee Titans, this Athletic article, it tells me between Vrabel and Amy, there were serious communication issues. And if the Titans don't learn their lesson on this, it's not going to get any better. 615-737-1025 is the phone number, 615-737-1025. And I do have kind of a message here to the fans about the owner. And it's a message that I hope that resonates with the owner. And it's a message I'm going to say because I don't think anybody over there has the guts to say it. And somebody's got to. We'll do that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
First of all, we talked about New England. New England's a part of this. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
So, again, speaking of Jared, he liked the word that I use. I think we use in the show, nothing burger.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't a nothing burger. Now, again, I still absolutely, as much as ever, believe that Vrabel was not trying to subtweet or send some message to the Titans or anything like that. I think he was trying to praise the Patriots. But how many people, Gentry S. is someone who came up to me and said, I don't know, man, that made me raise my eyebrows. And Gentry's the one who asked Vrabel about the presser.
Yep.
Well, that left a mark. And I think the big theme with this story is, let's take it to just life in general. Relationships. Communicate. Communication. Talk about things. And to me, I blame both sides. Look, both sides of this means what? It means Mike Vrabel and Amy Adams Strunk. That's what this story is. It's not Rand Carthon.
Yeah.
It's Mike Vrabel and it's Amy Adams Strunk. And the relationship broke down. And communication, I think, on both sides of it was not satisfactory.
There you go. That was Joe today after their big article in The Athletic about what led to the Vrabel firing. And again, Vrabel is rearview mirror now, and Amy Adams Strunk is very much at the forefront. But when it comes to the communication issues between the two, on Vrabel, I think it's very simple. He's an a-hole. Like, that is what you get with Mike Vrabel is you get, and I did a podcast with Matt Overton, the former Titans long snapper, has been all around the league today. His Stay Ready podcast I did earlier today, and he played for Vrabel in that 2020 season. And I'm like, Vrabel respects the players. This is why it's so different for players and everybody else. Vrabel respects the players. And it's obvious because he knows what they put into it. He probably knows how they feel about coaches. Vrabel respects the players. He doesn't respect anybody else. And that includes the owner. And Floyd used to tell me, in the NFL, he used Bill Belichick as the example. He said, in the NFL, every GM, every coach knows you have to kiss the owner's ass. He knew it. Now, I want to talk about Amy, because, again, that's looking forward. I like Amy a lot. I know Amy. I think Amy has got a heart of gold. And I say this because I've told this story, maybe not at this length, but Floyd wanted to keep his illness a secret. I was over there at his house on Father's Day, and Sally was telling me, hey, it's probably not going to be very long. And I had been kind of asking around, like, hey, what about the Titans, Ring of Honor? How do they go about? And because of the way the stadium was set up, they want in the new stadium, they've promised in the new stadium that the Ring of Honor and the way that they honor the former players, it's going to be 100 times better. They just don't have the space necessarily to make it look good enough the way that they wanted to do it. So they had kind of been taking a little bit of a break from the Ring of Honor, and they had been thinking about some other things. And so when I was over there on that Father's Day, and I knew that he didn't have very long, I went to the Titans, and I was like, hey, I need to talk to Amy. And I let it be known what was going on with Floyd. And immediately, the Titans were asking for Sally's number because Floyd wasn't answering his phone at that point. They were asking for Sally's number. Amy Adams Strunk is one of the last people that wasn't a doctor or a family member that he talked to. And that was of her letting him know that he was going into the Ring of Honor. And they changed it. They changed the way that they were operating that in order to put him in and to let him know that he was going to go in before he died. And I will never, ever, ever forget that when it comes to Amy Adams Strunk. So when I criticize her, I am criticizing the job she does as owner, which is part of the deal. But again, that tells you, I almost get a little choked up talking about this. That shows you the respect that I have for her. Now, she got to look in the mirror right now. Because what's going on in this organization, this paranoia that has been permeating this, she's mad at this one today, and then she fires that person, hires a new person, then she's mad at that one. That's got to stop. It's got to stop. Okay? These clues from the owner about, oh yeah, Mike Mularkey felt like nobody had his back because nobody was talking to him. Or even on Sunday, there was something that Joe talked about, that Amy wasn't on the field before the game like she normally is, and that bothered Mike Vrabel, supposedly. So we got to stop doing that. Like, it's time to look in the mirror at the organization, and it's time to say, okay, am I going to be the one that communicates with everybody on a daily basis? Am I the one that when I'm mad about something, I'm going to yell at Rand about it. But that's it. And then Rand's going to be in charge of the football. Am I going to be somebody that's going to be in there every day, going into the coach's office and saying on a Friday, so what do we think the game plan is? She's entitled to do whatever she wants by owning the team. But I keep asking, okay, if you don't change this constant, we're mad at this guy this year, and then we move being mad to the next guy next year, you're never going to have any stability, and nobody is ever going to be able to have trust in the organization and to feel secure in order to truly be able to do their jobs. And I hope she understands, like, there's kind of an emotional element to this side of it, which is like, hey, it's not about taking selfies with fans, which is important. It's not about being well-liked in the community, which she is. It's about everybody there when they go to work knowing, hey, this person cares about me. That's really important. And so when I look at Amy and I hear, yeah, she was mad at Vrabel because of this, and she was mad at Vrabel because of that, and she was mad about that Texans game, and then it's like they never talked it out, that's going to be a problem. When nobody knows how the owner feels, that's an issue. So she's got to look in the mirror here and say, okay, on this next hire, what are we doing here? Does the coach report to you every day? Does the GM report to you? Does the coach report to the GM and the GM reports to you? What about the team president? Are we going to put him in there? I know he's not a football guy, and I get it, because the last thing they want, he's a stadium guy, and the last thing they want is next year when they start asking you for all this money on the stadium for you to be really mad at him because he is involved in football. I get it, but you have to make sure that there are assurances for the employees that they are secure so that they can feel safe in doing their job. And not this constant game of trying to play favors and curry and, let's see if I can be the favorite today. That's not going to work. The way they did Mike Mularkey was wrong, regardless of if you got the desired outcome of them firing him as the coach and hiring the guy that you wanted or a guy that you liked. That was wrong. Firing Robinson the way that they did, that was wrong. Even the Vrabel stuff. And Vrabel is absolutely in the wrong on a lot of the passive-aggressive stuff. And, again, I think Vrabel wanted to get fired. I really do. But just this whole organization, Rand's up there at the press conference the other day. He's scared to death to say something that's going to get him in trouble. That's why he didn't say anything. He's scared to death. And I don't think that the organization can operate that way. The organization cannot lose a game thinking, oh my God, if we lose to the Texans, we're all going to get fired because the owner doesn't like Houston. There is a level of commitment here that is, hey, if you really want this to be successful, you have to do your part too. And I hope Amy understands that. Again, I've always said this about divorce. People get divorced all the time. The divorce rate's what, 50%? So people get divorced all the time. It does not mean you're a bad person. It does not mean that you're not meant to be with somebody else. It does not mean that you're a bad parent or any of that. Divorce happens. When you have 6 of them, eventually you need to look in the mirror, right? And when it comes to the Titans, it's like we had this game of backstab with Robinson and Mularkey, and we had it now with Robinson and now Vrabel, and it's like at some point you gotta change. You gotta stop doing that. And that's where I feel like we are with Amy, and at least that was a big takeaway I had in Joe's column. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. A bunch of you have thoughts on this, so we will weigh in on those. 615-737-1025, and I do promise that we will get to your phones. I see them all lined up, and I just Had to rant about that Joe article a little bit. Let's talk about FanDuel Sportsbook. That's right. When it comes to the NFL playoffs, you've got to win one game at a time. But when you bet the NFL playoffs on FanDuel, my official sportsbook app, one game can mean a lot of wins. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. They have all your favorite bets like the money line and spread, plus all sorts of prop bets. And again, I don't feel safe at all about the Dolphins with no defense, with all those injured players. I am worried in the frozen tundra with Tua from Hawaii. I am worried about their ability to be successful on Saturday night. Right now, every day there's an NFL playoff game. FanDuel is giving all customers a no-sweat same-game parlay. That means when you combine all your bets for a chance at a bigger payday, you'll get bonus bets back if your SGP doesn't win. Visit FanDuel.com/JGM if you don't already have an account. And make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. 21 and over and present in Tennessee. Minimum 3-leg parlay required. Refund issue is non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Max refund $5 unless otherwise specified. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call the Tennessee Red Line at 1-800-889-9789.
Mike Vrabel doesn't have a job today. What is the disconnect there?
Well, I think Amy spoke to her decision, of making, of the decision she made and why, and that was about her long-term vision, of the organization, and that's really I think what it was.
A moment ago, you said the reason primarily he was fired was because of the vision that Miss Amy sees for this team. What was it about Mike that wasn't compatible with that vision?
It's her vision for the organization, not the team. The vision for her organization and how she wants things structured for that. Like I said, Miss Amy's she's made her statement and she's clarified her reasons, and we're here to support her.
She talked about it, you talked about it, but no one's actually defined what it is.
I think at the right moment we'll define that vision, and that's going to come when we hire our next head coach, and we'll be able to give you guys more of a detailed description at that time.
It might not fit the vision today.
Well, again, this was about Ms. Amy's long-term vision, and she stated in her statement how she felt.
Can't share that vision?
No, it's not the time. It's not the time to share that vision today. Because I think as we go through this process, we need to make sure that we have the right person aligned with that, and why we hired that person will fit that vision.
What was it that Chris Berman used to say? Rumbling, bumbling, fumbling, stumbling. That's what it sounded like, there with Rand with the, can you define the vision? No. And again, that's what happens with the culture of paranoia where everybody's afraid that if they say the wrong thing at the wrong time, they're going to get axed. Rand's just trying not to get clipped. I get it. I've been watching way too much Sopranos. Phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Bruce has been waiting patiently and is going to kick us off. Thank you for waiting. What's up, Bruce?
Yeah, Jared, I think you pretty much nailed it there just now. I feel like Vrabel was fired for the wrong reasons. I was glad when he was fired, but that was mostly just because of our lack of offense the last 2 years. And now everything I'm seeing from that article and just in general, it just kind of sounds like Vrabel was only fired because he made Amy look bad. And I guess you could say the same thing for John Robinson now.
Well, I don't know what you mean by that. So you're saying that you think that she fired him because of what he said in New England?
It was a multitude of things. Losing to Houston in the Oilers uniforms made her look bad. The A.J. Brown trade made John Robinson made her look bad. And then the New England comments and everything that's come out, it's not anything to do with on-the-field product. It just seems like it's all
I think you're super, you're looking at one part of that article. Thank you for your call, Bruce. I think you're looking at one part of that article and saying, oh, my God, this is why he got fired. No. Vrabel got fired because they lost too many games. And I know it to be true that the coaching staff, which we banged on, was a big problem for ownership. The idea of, hey, we're going to let you go out and hire a new offensive line coach. We're going to let you hire a new offensive coordinator. We're going to let you change the staff. We're going to pay for Chris Harris. We're going to let you work on the coaching staff. And Vrabel came back with the offensive line coach with no experience and brought back Craig Aukerman, and we saw how that festered itself throughout the season. Those were big problems. It's just everybody knows that those were big problems, so that's not behind the scenes. They thought Craig Aukerman was a bad special teams coach too. Well, duh. We all know that. So, no, I don't think it's Amy was mad because Vrabel made her look bad. I mean, she was same reason why. Again, the same reason why I arguing that it's time to clean out. You're losing too many games. And as many excuses as you all want to make, you just can't lose too much in this league. Belichick just got fired. You cannot lose too much in this league. Texter into the text line says, one thing I can't say is so far Amy has been more right than wrong. Odd. Don't see those Lombardi trophies stacking up in there. And it's I don't even want to go down some of these discussion, paths like the people that are convinced Tajay Spears is Marshall Faulk. And I don't want to go down Bill Polian yesterday said on NFL radio. He said he was asked if Levis was, you would consider him a franchise guy going forward as far as potential new coach. And Polian said no, simply because he gets injured too much. And it's I know if I say that, some of you guys go, oh, Jared, that's not, no. So when I tell you that Mike Mularkey was a good coach and didn't deserve to get fired, you're going to tell me, oh, Mularkey wouldn't fire Trubisky. He was this, he was that, he was this, he was that. And it's right, but you were in the divisional round of the playoffs. You don't fire coaches when you get to the divisional round of the playoffs. And so I would argue that she was wrong on that, but you'll say she was right because you guys liked Vrabel more than you liked her. Texture says, you're asking Amy to act like a business person. It seems logical, but she's never been one. Now, a lot of people have talked about inheriting the team, which she did. Now, I have two thoughts on that. First of all, the league is pretty much either owned by crazy-ass rich people who are so rich that it's like they're entitled to everything and they don't understand how the NFL works, and you get David Tepper throwing his drink out on some fan. Or it's the kids of the founders of the league. It's the Mara kids up in New York. It's the Irsay kid in Indianapolis. It's the Adams kids here. It's the Davis kid out in Vegas. So it's the kids now that are kind of doing it. And so, I mean, I don't think that Amy's any different than the Brown kids that are up in Cincinnati or anything like that. And then some of these guys that have kind of earned their way, like a Tepper, those guys are crazy too. So I think Tepper was a good business person. Texture says, whoever the new coach is, the Titans are a mess. If they don't resign Derrick Henry, they will be terrible for some years to come. Yeah, I mean, I think we got to worry about the coach situation before we worry about Derrick Henry. And I'm not ready to say that if they don't sign Derrick Henry, it'll be bad for years to come. But I do think they're better off with Derrick Henry than they are without, Derrick Henry. Texture says, the article mentioned the second loss to Houston as the final nail in the coffin for Vrabel. You mentioned that the whole week of the game. What did I say at 5 o'clock on the Titans Monday following the loss to the JV Texans? I said, if I own the team, that would be it. We wouldn't say anything. We wouldn't do anything. And then on Black Monday, both the GM and the coach would be gone. We'd be starting over. We'd be starting fresh. No more, well, this guy we're mad at today and then we'll be mad at that guy tomorrow. No more of that. We're starting over. Same day she probably felt that way. I also told you guys that the headline in the Houston Chronicle was Texans give Titans, Amy Adams Strunk exactly what they deserve. And that's their hometown paper. Can't have that. Texter into the text line says, the only way to regain control, like it or not, is to let Rand have total control in picking the coach and make them a package deal. I don't think you can fire either one of them if they stink next year, but how long would you give them before you fired them and try to install stability, but refrain for sucking for forever? And I'm going to tell you this again, when it comes to me, I would have cleaned house on Rand if for no other reason. They didn't hire Rand to pick the coach. They didn't hire Rand to be that full-time, like that true football director with everybody reporting to him. And they have not said, in fact, they have said, we'll tell you later, when it comes to if the new coach will be in that position or not. But my guess is Rand's next on the chopping block. So they'll hire Brian Callahan to be the next head coach. And Brian Callahan, if things don't go well and the draft picks don't flourish the way you all want them and will envision that they will, then Rand's going to be in trouble. And that's the problem with the organization, is it has to stop being that. That is a problem. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. One texter said, I told you all along it was Vrabel calling the shots on the roster, and Rand was just observing and working within the boundaries he was given. That's not true. Vrabel didn't call the shots on the roster. Vrabel wanted to call the shots on the roster, according to the article in today's Athletic. They wanted to call the shots. He wanted to. Not that he was. In fact, the problem for him was that he was not. 615-737-1025. More of your phones. Plus, I had an opinion yesterday on the Titans coaching search that I would like to retract. It was an in-the-moment opinion. Ian, I think this is a fair opinion to be able to retract.
Okay.
So we will get to that next. 615-737-1025 here on Stillman & Company, Once again, that's 615-737-1025. Stillman & Company is brought to you by Jarrett Company's Fire and Commercial Plumbing HVAC Division. 615-515-1270, JarrettCompaniesInc.com. And be sure to tune in to 94.9 The Fan tonight for Vandy women's basketball. The Commodores are on the road taking on Kentucky pregame at 5:45. Tip-off at 6, and coverage is also available on the 94.9 The Fan app and at 949thefan.com.
I competed pretty hard to be the coach, just so you know, because I just wanted to make sure that I stood up for all of our coaches and the players and the things that we had accomplished, and not so that we could be the coach still, but so that we could continue to have a chance to be successful and keep the organization going. That's what I was fighting for. So I in that regard, that was what I was representing in our discussions, and we got to a good part, a good clean spot where it made sense, and I went along with their intentions. I'm grateful for the intention that that the organization has to try to find something that makes sense. So we'll see. I don't know.
So that was Pete Carroll yesterday, who was essentially fired by the Seattle Seahawks. I can't believe the Seahawks fired him. But again, very positive. He's going to have a role in the organization. He was asked about that yesterday. Says there's no clue what that's going to be. But again, it's an amicable way to be fired. And Diana Rossini reported today that the Titans are not interested in Jim Harbaugh or Bill Belichick for their opening, and they would consider guys on either side of the ball. And the one name that was surprising to me that wasn't included amongst the kind of the older, more established crew that wasn't named was Pete Carroll. Now, yesterday on Jared versus Joe, Chase asked about whether or not either of us would be interested in Pete Carroll coaching the Titans, to which I just brushed it off, say 72 years old. I want a coach who's going to be here for the next 15 years. I'd like to walk that opinion back a little bit. Pete Carroll would not be my first choice for coach of the Titans. I don't know the difference between Ben Johnson and Brian Callahan and Bobby Slowick and Jared Stillman. I don't know the difference between these guys, and there's no way to really know them until you interview them, which none of us will, but they as an organization eventually will. So I can't tell you who the best leader is, or if, one of these guys comes off as a total bozo or wouldn't work well with others, whatever. What I do know, and I want the best of that guy to be the next coach of the Titans if they can get him. What I do know is this. I'm not a huge Rand Carthon guy, as you all know. I just don't think Rand's got it. I've heard too much. I've seen too much. The press conference the other day was too much. And maybe Pete Carroll is the right guy to come in here. And again, he's not my first choice. But maybe Pete Carroll is the right guy to come in here for 5 years, which is an eternity for an NFL coach. But to come in here and lead the organization from the top, hire Pete Carroll, put him in charge, say he's the number one guy, and then have Pete set up the long-term succession plan, whether it's Rand or somebody else, to ultimately take over true control of the personnel department and maybe a coach underneath him or something like that to prepare him to be the future head coach of the Titans. And I know that, to plan that and then for it to actually come to fruition would be incredibly hard to make sure it happens, but I wouldn't be against it. Because what I do think the Titans need is they need stability. They need somebody that they can trust. They need somebody that has skins on the wall, that's an alpha, and that is Pete. And when it comes to the age of Pete Carroll, I'll never forget a couple years ago, we were in the studio and Pete was on TV, and Floyd said to me and goes, Pete and I are the same age. I said, what? He's like, we don't look it, do we? Ha, ha, ha. And it's like, yesterday Pete was talking about all the energy that he still has and the ability to coach and this, that. Pete Carroll, I think, is a young 72. I think what's great about Pete is he did kind of reinvent himself there at the end in Seattle, which a lot of coaches can't do. Pete learned from his mistakes in New England. Pete was a great college coach. I'm not saying that I want the Titans to go hire Pete Carroll. But yesterday, I just completely dismissed it, and I just don't want to dismiss it. I just want to go back and say, you know what? The more I thought about it last night, and I did think about it a lot last night, the more I thought about it, the more I wouldn't be against Pete Carroll. Just kind of being like the leader of the organization for right now. Just for right now. One texter says, dude, Pete Carroll? You've been out of your mind for the last 2 days now. I'm starting to worry about you. I mean, I don't know what you're looking for here when it comes to the last 2 days. Yesterday, I was against Pete Carroll. I just said, hey, he's too old. Today, I'm like, I could see a scenario where it wouldn't be the end of the world. But again, Pete Carroll's not my number one choice. My number one choice is the best of these young offensive play callers with their giant play sheets and their freaking tight pants and their lattes That's the one that I want. Is that I want the next guy. I want the next McVay. I want the next guy. But if I can't get him, or I interview all these guys and I don't feel like any of them are that guy, then I'm okay with Pete Carroll. By the way, this is just a gut feeling. I have no inside info on this. I think the Titans want Brian Callahan. Like I just dissecting some of the stuff I've heard and who I've heard it from and, who they might be talking to. And that's just my initial gut feel is that I think the Titans want Brian Callahan. And this is not a report. This is not a Jared Stillman is saying, and that must have come from, it didn't come from anybody but Jared's head. But the more I think about it, the more I think they want Brian Callahan from the Bengals. They did request permission for Bobby Slowick today, and I did get incredibly excited about that because John McClain went on Chasing Big Joe about a month ago and just waxed poetically about Bobby Slowick and said that Kyle Shanahan told him that of all the years he's been doing this, the year last year that he did it with Bobby Slowick, that was the best year they had, and that he attributed that to Bobby, and maybe Kyle Shanahan was just blowing smoke up McClain's tush, but I felt like, hey, if that is the case, and this is the closest you can get to Shanahan and, the next Shanahan guy, do it. So I am pro Slowick. But I think I'm not against any of these other guys, and I wouldn't rule out Pete Carroll, and I wouldn't, again, go to the mat for Slowick when I don't know him, but he is my favorite just because he's the Shanahan guy and so on and so forth. Texter says, the Titans don't only want Brian Callahan, but they want Bill Callahan, the Browns offensive line coach, to come in and clean up this mess. I don't know. Bill Callahan. When everybody got on the Titans about not trading Vrabel, I wanted to say the one thing to remember is that the Raiders got 2 1s and 2 2s for John Gruden, and everybody says, why not do that? But they were stuck with promoting Bill Callahan to be their head coach, and he wasn't very good. But his son might be a little different. 615-737-1025. TD is back for the TD Power Hour. Tehran will join us next. Stillman and Company right here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Again, that phone number is 615-737-1025. Got a little basketball. Tune into 93.3 Classic Hits tonight for MTSU basketball. The Blue Raiders are at home taking on Louisiana Tech. Pregames at 7:30 and tip-off is at 8. And tune into 102.5 The Game this Saturday for Vandy men's basketball. As the Commodores are on the road at Mississippi State. Pregame 11:30 a.m., tip-off at noon. And coverage is available on the 102.5 The Game app. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Spring Hill Heating and Cooling Studios. It is 3 o'clock on a Thursday, and today marks the return of the Teron Davenport Power Hour. TD is with us from ESPN. Obviously, TD had been away from us for a little bit. TD, first of all, it's great to have you back, and I would like to open the floor to you.
Yeah, no, it's great to be back, man. I can't tell you how much I missed being in the mix and doing the things that we do. It's great to be back. But I will say, obviously there were poor decisions that were made, and I know I let a lot of people down, and I really, truly, from the bottom of my heart, apologize to the people that I let down. There's no mistakes, only lessons, and I appreciate just the support that you go through something, you find out how many people are in your corner, and this has been a very enlightening experience. Just the support that I got, and even those who had all the things to say on social media, I appreciate that too, because that fueled me to get this. We got some things going. I'll just put it that way. We'll be better through this. So these couple minutes leading up to this period, man, I felt like I was back in school, man. I needed the Phil Collins music playing or something, getting ready to take the field against Kutztown or IUP or something like that, man. But I'm excited. Let's go.
TD, it's good to have you back. And
yes,
again,
sir.
We're in your corner. Mistakes are what they are. And just because people make mistakes does not mean that they're bad people. And so we are in your corner. We're glad to have you back. Nothing's really gone on, though, with the Titans in the
really.
last, however long it's been. So let me just open the floor then to you again. Your thoughts on the situation the Titans find themselves in today and how we got here.
Yeah, it's really crazy. Just as far – I don't like to use that word. It's really wild just as far as how we've gotten to this point. I do remember, 3 or 4 weeks ago, leaning into the phone and telling you, Mike Vrabel is not going anywhere. At that point, that was the information that I was getting, right? But things just continued to just spiral out of control. Not even out of control, but just spiral. And it got to a point, where Amy Adams Strunk, she had that decision that she Sunday, that decision was, going into Sunday, that decision was made. They went out in true Vrabel form, right? They beat the Jaguars, and of course, that's what you coined, the Vrabel special, and he delivered one last one of those, and it threw a little bit of a wrench in it. But I remember talking to the guys in the locker room, and some of the guys, a couple of them said they didn't even have meetings with Vrabel, the exit meetings. And then when you didn't see him scheduled for the end of the season press conference, and then on top of that, just some of the other things that, I got from talking to people, it was like, and you remember I called you, right? And we talked, and it was like, yeah, today is probably going to be the day, but it ended up being the next day, and that's pretty much where we are. And now you look at this situation. Rand Carthon had to have that press conference. I feel like he was a boxer that was put out there, a right-handed boxer at that was put out there with his right hand tied behind his back, and it's unfortunate. The press conference, obviously, there was a lot to be desired from it. Everybody wants to know what is the vision. Right, and there's different sides that you could take on that. Okay, yeah, he should have told the vision. Yeah, he shouldn't have. I don't know what the reasoning was behind not telling the vision, but you also look at some of the things he said, and there was good and there was bad, right? I mean, you look, they did have 7 games where the ball could have bounced another way, and it would have been a win. I mean, we talked about that, Jared. If you remember, I had said how I saw the 2016 Eagles have so many games, close games, end up being losses, but then the 17 team, those losses turn into wins, and we know the difference between those two teams.
Yeah, but we knew this was a 6-win.
Whoa, time out. Hold on now. That flat out should have won, but they fumbled it away because of the issues, whether it's a missed extra point or it's a mistake at the end of the game, giving up a big play in New Orleans, those types of things, and that is what puts you in a position to where you're a 6-win team.
So I have a couple thoughts. I mean, first off, I would say on the Rand front, I think the reason why Rand Carthon left a lot to be desired on Monday, and I'll use or whatever day it was, Tuesday, and I'll use the vision thing, is because he didn't want to get fired. And Amy Adams Strunk, it's proving that, she loves you one day and then she doesn't necessarily love you the next day. And that I understand, Amy's the one making all these decisions. Rand doesn't want to overstep his boundaries, which I'm not sure the Titans do a very good job of defining as to what's what for who. And yet at the same time, I don't have a problem at all with them firing Mike Vrabel. I think Mike Vrabel had deserved to be fired. And yet a lot of the national media and a lot of the narrative around the country is, how stupid could the Titans be to fire Mike Vrabel? And, I mean, again, I think everybody knew this ahead of time. I don't have a problem with that at all. Do you?
No, I don't have a problem with that. And let me say this. If you go back, do you remember, about 6 weeks ago, I asked Mike Vrabel about control of the locker room? And I didn't ask him whether or not he has it. I said, show me examples of how you do. Because as early as then, there were things in the locker room, right? And I liken it to when the 49ers, before Jim Harbaugh became the coach, right? Mike Singletary came in, a hard-nosed, fact of the matter, this is the way type of mindset. Now, obviously, Mike Vrabel got better results than Mike Singletary. Let's make that clear. But Singletary came in. They won games when he was the interim. They were competitive the second year. Then the next year, it was just like, wow. And that's when everything sunk in. And that message, right, didn't really sink in as much, right? And then the day-to-day grind and what was being asked, it wasn't as easy to do. Because you're losing. And when you're losing, you start to microanalyze everything. And then winning, it masks so many things. So I think you look at that happened. But then also, just emotions in the building. That's something that I know it wasn't on weeks when they lost. Look, the energy in that building, it started and ended with Mike. It started with Mike Vrabel. It started with him. And I know that on weeks with losses, it was tough for different people in that building. Mm-hmm. I'll say that. And weeks when it wins, it was good. When you're riding that roller coaster, like, you can't do that. You can't have that climbing up the hill and then it's just that drop. You got to be more consistent. Right, and that's something that seemed to be lacking in that building. So there's a lot of stuff that contributed to it. And then not to mention, sometimes relationships they take their course, right? Like it runs its course. And I think that's also what happened, where it ran its course and they just needed something fresh in there.
I think, too, that the Titans have got to get out of the habit that they've been in, which it feels like the owner one day likes either the coach or the GM, and then she hates the other guy. And then the next day, she flips it, and now she's mad at the GM, and so she fires the GM, and then she brings in a new GM, and then she hates the coach, and now fires the coach. And it's like they're going to hire a new coach, and then, how long does it take until she turns around and starts, putting it all on Rand?
Yeah.
I think that's got to stop, and there's nobody in that building that can get the owner to stop doing that. And I just think that somebody has to say it, and I'm going to say it, that I do think that there's a culture of paranoia right now that is permeating that organization, and there's not one person over there that can fix that except for the owner.
Yeah, I mean, the way she could fix it is by, being patient with people. But it's just I don't know how you do fix that, right? Like, once you establish that reputation like that, hey, you know what? If you get something set in your mind, that's it. It's hard to establish, to clear what you've established like that. So I don't know how you fix that. I think the fact of the matter is, guys just got to go out there and girls, because there are men and women very prominent in that organization. They just have to go and do their job and just winning is just going to be the answer. I think that's the only way to fix it, honestly.
But don't you think it's harder to do that in an organization where the owner has a reputation for flying off the handle than it is, say, the Steelers or the Ravens?
Bro, it's hard to do that, but guess what? Like, it's hard to do a lot of things, and you just got to do it. You know what I mean? And I think that's really the bottom line. And we could sit here and say, hey, make this easier, make that easier. Ryan Tannehill throws a ball behind Treylon Burks, and he drops it. You don't say, oh, that ball was behind him. It's hard to catch that. You say, oh, he got to catch that. And I think it's the same thing in other areas of that organization, just in life, period.
TD is with us for the TD Power Hour. Coming up next, the candidates going forward. The Titans are basically interviewing or requesting to interview everybody except for Jim Harbaugh or Bill Belichick, but pretty much everybody else. They're putting the requests in. What does TD think about the candidates for the head coaching job of the Titans? We'll do that coming up next. 615-737-1025 will hit your questions for TD at the bottom, as we always do during the TD Power Hour here on our program. Let's talk about some windows. That's right, Window Nation. I love Window Nation. They're online at windownation.com. So with windows, you need experts because your home is probably your biggest investment, and you want to add value to your home. Fixing and replacing windows, custom-made windows, is exactly what Window Nation does. Replacing old windows is easier and more affordable than you think. That's right, with no interest for 5 years and 50% off all window styles. Do not wait. Simply call 866-90-NATION or visit windownation.com. Again, that's 866-90-NATION. And with the constant change in weather, your heating costs, your AC, your energy costs are going to go through the roof. Let the windows of your home take great care of you. That's right, Window Nation, windownation.com.
some specifics about specifics in the search now. A lot of people are saying that Amy Adams Strunk is only going to consider someone with an offensive background to be the head coach. Is that true?
Actually, no. I believe we need to improve across the board. So it's important to find someone that brings in, a lot of diverse ideas and fresh perspective, and that's the most important thing in that new head coach.
All right, let me take that a step further. So then what you're saying is you're going to be very interested in the staff that a potential head coach can show you when he talks to you.
Yes, that's going to be very important. The head coach is the leader and the face, but that staff is super important. So we're gonna want him to bring in strong candidates, and we want to hear who he's going to bring in.
Amy Adams Strunk in her sit down with Mike Keith the other day, talking about what they want, not ruling out either side of the ball. TD Power Hour, Teron Davenport is with us. TD, everybody except for Harbaugh and Belichick that has a pulse, the Titans have asked for permission to interview. I guess they don't have to ask for permission on those two. But all the candidates they've requested permission for, what do we make of the candidates? And let me say this, I want offense. I don't care if it's – I want an offensive coach, but other than that, what do you think so far about the search? And maybe what do we know about the Titans search?
Yeah, so here's the deal, right? You look at it, I like the approach. You're leaving no stone unturned. There's a process that has to happen as far as, there's different things you have to satisfy before you arrive upon who is your guy. We know this. So I agree with you. I was actually talking to Chase about this before coming in here, and it does need to be an offensive coach in my mind, because you look at the way this league goes, right? And remember, you have a young quarterback in Will Levis who, counting his college days, this is the fourth different offense he's going to learn, potentially the fourth different offense he's going to learn in 4 years. That's not really conducive to a quarterback developing. So you definitely want to keep that in mind. And I know Rand Carthon said there's more players on the team, and he's right. But the most important player on this team is Will Levis. So that being said, you want to make sure that you have him in consideration, strong consideration, when you hire the position. When you go back to this offensive situation, let's say you bring in, look, I'm not going to hide anything about it. I feel Brian Callahan is the best candidate, and I'll get into that in a moment. But let's say you bring in Brian Callahan, right? So now you bring in someone who is an offensive coach. It's his offense. And he brings in whoever it may be to be the OC, right? And you have Charles London as the quarterback coach / pass game coordinator, because we know Will Levis attributes a lot of his development to who? Charles London. So he's a key piece in this program, in this puzzle. And let's say the offense performs out of this world. Whoever the OC is, you know what's going to happen. You see what's happening with Houston and Bobby Slowik. Oh, he's a head coach material, so he's going to get those interviews. Eventually, he's going to leave. But guess what stays? The offense. Mm-hmm. Guess what makes it even better? The idea that you text to me a couple of days ago when I told you that Callahan should bring Dan Pitcher. You said, oh, wait a minute, Liam Cohen. Now you have a guy who has proven success with your quarterback, and he's not learning a new scheme. He's going back to what he excelled in. You look at the past 3 seasons, he played best in what scheme? Liam Cohen's. So now you're setting things up. And, yeah, of course, they do well. Liam Cohen moves on, but you still have Brian Callahan's scheme in place. So I think that's the best way to go. I think you look at Brian Callahan, again, it goes back to what I said. Will Levis is the most important player on this franchise. So you want someone who has a proven record of working with quarterbacks. I don't know, Peyton Manning, Matthew Stafford, Derek Carr even, Joe Burrow. That's a pretty good group. And then on top of that, what is your major issue? The biggest team need is what? Offensive line. The Bengals have been struggling on the offensive line the last few years, but guess what? They still managed to be top 10 in most offensive categories. Mm-hmm. I know Brian Callahan is not calling the plays. I know that. Zach Taylor is. But rest assured, Brian Callahan has a lot to do with that. And so if you remember a while ago, you had mentioned Ben Johnson, and I had asked you, like, what do you know about Ben Johnson? I told you to research him, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to practice what I preach. I did some research on Brian Callahan, and in talking to some of the people that I've been able to connect with in Cincinnati, one of the things that they really like about him is the way the players react to him, specifically Joe Burrow. But then you also look at just some of the things, right? I watched some of his press conferences, watched him on different shows, and he talked about tendencies and how you want to show initially in the game, you want to show a team, a defense, looks, right? Which is what everybody wants to do. But then you play off of it. And he talked about how you don't let them dictate to you what you want to do. You show them things, you see their reaction, and you know what you could do, but you also make sure that those tendencies that you have, he said he learned from Tom Moore. You know Tom Moore, who's with the Bucs now.
Oh, yeah. He's like Santa.
Yeah, exactly. He kind of looks like him, literally, you know what I mean? But, he said that he learned from him that tendencies are not a bad thing. It means you're good at something. But balance is when you have to balance when and how to break it. And you also have to work on your counters. So one of the things they did a lot in Cincinnati, the slot fade with T. Higgins. Shoot, I would do the same thing. It's very successful. He's tough to cover. So they did the slot fade a lot with him. But then they started to play off of that, where he'll have that stutter step, release to the fade, break down and turn back to the quarterback and kind of go back shoulder. Or he'll stutter step, couple steps to the fade and run a slant, right? So he said that the key, about the script and your tendencies is balancing, pushing the envelope of what is done schematically, formation-wise, and how it could be executed in key moments. So in essence, what he's saying is know what you do well and execute it in those key moments, but also be able to show what you do well in different formations and different looks. And then, what did Amy Adams Strunk, she wanted someone who's innovative, right? So Brian Callahan, he talked about watching the explosive plays from the Dolphins and other teams and incorporating their motions and things like that. But it was pretty funny because of all the things that you see the Dolphins do, he mentioned about the running game. And he talked about a lead block run that they would use. And he said, yeah, it's innovative, but that's really just things repeating itself. And he pointed to how it was what Mike Shanahan, key word there for you, especially Shanahan, used with the Broncos, and Bill Walsh with the 49ers with 21 personnel and slant spacing. And he said that, a lot of stuff is new, quotes, but OCs are bringing older concepts and just incorporating it to their personnel. And then he talked about how, the Dolphins use different motions and things like that. And obviously, their personnel scheme is different, but he said you take that concept and you learn how to adapt that to your personnel. I like those types of things. If I was a player or if I was a fan, I would get excited. Heck, I'm an objective reporter, and I'm excited hearing these things. So for me, when I look at the candidates, I haven't taken as deep of a dive in Ben Johnson, Brian Johnson. I did some research on Bobby Slowick. We could talk about him as well. But I personally feel, and Aaron Glenn and Antonio Pierce, I personally feel Brian Callahan is the best option for this team. And he's a guy that's young. He's going to be here for a bit. I don't see any reason why you don't sign him. And then also, you look at Ben Johnson, he's kind of like got the pick of the litter, so to speak. I don't see how he doesn't go to the Chargers. I mean, you look at all these situations, like what?
Oh, I think Harbaugh's going there.
Yeah, that could happen too. That could definitely happen too. But if I were him, that's what I would be angling for, the Chargers. But yeah, if Harbaugh goes there, then it's fair game. But yeah, I think Brian Callahan, nevertheless, is the best option for this team.
Okay, I want to get into all the other guys next. 615-737-1025. We'll hit that, which I do want to get into the other potential names the Titans have reached out to or who could be on there and what TD has heard or what he thinks about those kind of guys in the coaching search. So we will do that here on Stillman and Company. And I'm in a good mood right now, so let's give away some tickets to see Third Eyed Blind at First Bank Amphitheater on June 30th. Be caller 5 at 615-737-1025, and you will see Third Eye Blind at First Bank Amphitheater on June 30th. Stillman and Company is brought to you by Jarrett Company's Fire and Commercial Plumbing HVAC Division. 615-515-1270, JarrettCompaniesInc.com.
Bobby Slowick worked with his dad, Bob Slowick, was a longtime defensive coordinator in the NFL. And Bobby was a defensive assistant working with Mike Shanahan in Washington. That's how he got to know Kyle Shanahan. And when they got fired and Kyle went to Cleveland and Atlanta, then San Francisco, Bobby spent 3 years working with Pro Football Focus, watching tape constantly. And he told us that experience was great for him. So then when Kyle Shanahan gets the head coaching job, two guys he calls up, Bobby Slowick to be a defensive assistant, and D'Amico Ryans to be a defensive assistant. So after watching Slowick on defense, I did a column on Kyle about this after the Texans hired Ryans and Slowick, and he said, I thought he would do great on offense, so I stole him from the defense. And I said, well, you're a head coach. You don't have to steal anything. He said, but I kind of felt bad about it. But he did it. He thought it was great for him to do that. And he became Kyle Shanahan's right-hand man. Last year, he was the passing game coordinator. And Shanahan told me, he said, last year was the best offensive season I've ever had. I said, better than Atlanta when you went to the Super Bowl? And he said, yes. And he said it was not a coincidence that Bobby had most of his more responsibilities and more influence on game plans and everything on our offense than he'd ever had.
There you go. That was John McClain on Chase and Big Joe talking Bobby Slowick. TD, here's my one thing about Bobby Slowick. When I hear that, Kyle Shanahan said that was the best year they ever had. On one hand, I'm like, Kyle might just be saying that because he's talking to the Houston guy and John McClain's writing it and he wants to say something good about his guy, Bobby Slowick. Or it might be true that Slowick might be the best of all those guys. The one thing I will say is this. It feels like the Shanahan-McVay guys never fail. And I have a hard time getting away from the Shanahan-McVay guys. What do you think of kind of the Shanahan-McVay tree and the Titans going to that branch?
Well, I think it would be good, and there's obviously ties because you look at the 49 organization, who is the head coach there, Kyle Shanahan, and we know Rand, Carthon, and Shanahan, and John, et cetera. There's ties there. So it definitely makes sense, and I think it is proven to be successful on some level, right? It may not always be Super Bowl level, but it has proven to be a successful just way of doing things. And I think Zach Taylor is an excellent example because, you look at how he went to Cincinnati and that situation of all situations and look at them now. They're one of the teams, so that you always look at as a postseason threat. So, yeah, I definitely agree there. And, Brian Callahan has the Shanahan ties, via Zach Taylor. So you do have that and the McVay ties too.
So what do we think of the defensive guys that the Titans have requested permission on? Antonio Pierce of the Raiders. I think the Raiders, and again, I'm not farming their land, I think they'd be crazy to not keep Antonio Pierce as the coach. Aaron Glenn of the Lions, who I did like when he was on Hard Knocks, and then Mike McDonald of the Ravens. I don't have an issue with any of those guys except I want an offensive guy. What do we know about the defensive guy?
Yeah, I think, Antonio Pierce, the Raiders would be crazy to let him go. You look at the way Devontae Adams, stood on the table for him. You look at Max Crosby, talking with TD alum. We'll point that out. No, all jokes aside.
Especially after they blew the Bisaccia thing the way they did and then hired Josh. No choice here.
It would be crazy and you just look at the organization itself. And I think, when you look at a group like that's trying to build culture, you don't let him go. But that being said, you want that CEO, you want that guy that could be the face of your franchise as a coach. I think Antonio Pierce would be that guy. I'm just curious, how will that extrapolate over a full season, right? Because, I don't know if it was lightning in the bottle, just a refreshing change or whatever, because we know Josh McDaniels hasn't always been someone that endeared himself to the players. So you go from that to Pierce. I think what he did with the Raiders was phenomenal. I personally don't go that route. Again, going back, and I hate to really allow somebody's area of expertise to limit the opportunity that I would want to give them, but I think you go back to offense. Aaron Glenn, funny thing is I remember back in college using the Jets and getting interceptions with him in Madden. You know what I mean? So it's just crazy that now we're talking about him as a head coach, but you look at what the Lions defense has been able to do. You look at him coming from a successful organization and that the last 2 years they've been, really good. So you do have that. And he also is another one that gives you that fiery. I mean, you mentioned Hard Knocks, man. Him and Deuce Staley, like the back and forth between them was pretty fun to watch. You know what I mean? So you definitely have that. And he's another one that could come in and be a leader. But again, the defensive side of things, I don't think that's the way to go right now unless you have an OC that you know is going to be there for a period of time. And a good OC is a gift and a curse, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's like I look at McDermott in Buffalo. You know, somebody asked me about this weekend, and I don't know. Philadelphia, it's so wild and crazy up there. I don't know what's going to happen if they lose to Tampa Bay on Monday night. But in Buffalo, I mean, I don't want to sit here and say, like, it feels like McDermott's coaching for his job. But I could see if they lose to Pittsburgh with Josh Allen at quarterback at home, I could see them making a change if for no other reason the idea that, hey, if we have Josh Allen, if we get a good offensive coordinator every time that Josh gets right, we're going to lose the offensive coordinator and we're going to have to get Sean to hire another offensive guy. And I look at that with Levis saying best case scenario is Levis becomes Justin Herbert or Dan Marino, and he stays with the same coach the whole time.
He becomes a top 5 in history quarterback.
Hey, just remember, Dan Marino had a bad senior season.
Hey, listen.
And Dan Marino fell all the way to the end of the first round.
I get it, but man, cut that young fella
I'm just
some
saying,
slack, man. Don't
Dan
put
Marino,
him in Dan Marino.
Dan Marino, that was the guy there. Is there any of the do you really think they could go? I don't think they're going defense. I think they're interviewing everybody to get a feel.
Yeah.
But I think they're going offense.
Yeah, I think they're going offense. As you said, I think they're getting the feel. It's there's nothing wrong with sometimes a guy knocks your socks off, right? Look at what Mike Tomlin did, when he interviewed with the Steelers. You never know. So you do have that. I do think they go offense. We came in from the break with John McClain on Bobby Slowick, and I don't know. I don't know. Some of the people I talked to in Houston, like, they said he's not ready. And I think if you look at 19, 20 to 1, I mean, like, I just don't know how that situation will work out. I think if he came in, he would absolutely have to have a tenured type of OC. Like, I don't know. Just throwing a name out. The first name that came to my mind, everybody, don't shoot me. I'm just putting a name out there, Frank Reich. Like, say, you know what I mean? Like, it was that you got to have somebody who has been a head coach that you could lean on in that situation and actually be someone to help hammer in your culture. I just don't know.
Are there any veteran Shanahan coaches that are out there that would be a fit like that?
I would really have to comb to try to think of it, because you're looking at now assistant coaches, right? Because what OC is going to leave their situation, and you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, you don't know, and also the organization could always block a lateral move. So I'm not sure. None pop to mind. I tell you what's interesting though. Mike Kafka is on the list, and
heard good things about him. To be honest.
Now he goes back to I remember watching him when he first got to the Eagles. I remember watching this dude as a quarterback, but he goes back to Andy Reid and the Chiefs. He kind of cut his teeth coaching there. He's an interesting option as well. OC with the Giants, obviously, so there's ties to Brian Daboll, but his roots really go back to Andy Reid, and that's another proven system, right? A proven coaching tree with Andy Reid, and that dates even further back to Mike Holmgren, and then even further back to Bill Walsh. So that's something he's a name that I will watch as well.
So the one thing I will say about the offensive coach, I used to hate that. I used to want like a coach that coached the whole team.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm totally fine with bringing in one of these veteran defensive coordinators that, hey, it's your side of the ball, Jim Schwartz. It's your side of the ball, Wade Phillips. It's your side of the ball, Raheem Morris. It's your side of the ball. You've been doing this for 20 years. Like, let's say Bowles gets fired in Tampa Bay. It's your side of the ball, Todd Bowles.
Mm-hmm.
Like, bringing that guy in to run the defense. And I used to hate that, and now I'm not against it. And
you know what? I'll say this. You know who I think will be an awesome – I don't know if he would do it because he just, I don't know, retired or parted ways. But I've always respected – and he was in Baltimore when I covered the Ravens. He was a linebackers coach. Wink Martindale would be an excellent, like, if a guy like Bobby Slowick comes in, or even Callahan. I keep wanting to call him Shanahan. Any of these young, really whoever comes in, he would be an excellent, because now you have somebody who's attacking, right? And you have, somebody who wants these corners to play press. So, hey, look, I mean, you bring back Christian Fulton. Christian Fulton is better in press coverage. I mean, look, you look at the game against the Jaguars game, and it still baffles me. I don't understand it, right? It's 2nd and goal from the 7-yard line, and you got your DB playing 8 yards off the ball. Like, what are we doing here? You know what I mean? So I think you bring in someone who has that attacking, that man coverage type of press and just dominant type of defensive mindset. I think that would also help set the tone, for the team overall. And Wink Martindale being as tenured as he was, that would be that would be really good for a first-time head coach, because there's things that could be bounced off of him.
Right to your phones for TD next, 615-737-1025. Twice Daily wants to send you to Italy. That's right. Visit twicedaily.com/sweepstakes for more info. Buy any made-to-order Italian sub and use your rewards app to get entered to win. Every sub is a chance to win, and mobile-ordered Italian subs count as 2 times the entry. That's right. In fact, Twice Daily can make to order any sandwich. That's right. You customize your sandwich with all the preferred meats and cheeses, bagels with all the fixings, and have snacks prepared the second you order from any of your local Twice Daily. That's right. I love it. Download the Twice Daily app today and join their loyalty program to unlock special discounts, savings, and so much more. If you thought you saw me at the Green Hills Twice Daily, you did, because I'm there like 3 times a day. It pays to be a member with Twice Daily, where you earn points and save money with every visit. Get what you crave at Twice Daily. Twice Daily, fresh all day. Stillman and Company TD Power Hour. Let's get to your phones, which are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Billy is up next. You're on with TD. Thank you for calling. What's up, Billy?
Hey, thanks, guys. First, I just want to say welcome back, TD. It's nice listening to you guys every week.
Thank you.
Second, I'd like to say, in my opinion, the home run hire is Bobby Slowick for more reasons than one. His work with Stroud, the connection with Carthon, but he grew up, he cut his teeth on the defensive side of the ball, and Shanahan seen he was so smart moving the offense, so you're kind of getting best of both worlds, really. He can help out here, there, and everywhere. So thanks for the time, guys. I enjoy listening to you. Have a great day.
Thank you, Billy.
Yeah.
Is it wrong to get carried away with that idea that Kyle Shanahan told John McClain that Bobby Slowick was so good that he decided to move him to offense?
I think it's something that you definitely consider. I just, again, it goes back to, you look at one of the things with Mike Vrabel when he was here. I just felt like he did a really good job of just being he was the guy, you know what I mean, and just being the CEO, being the front piece of the organization. So I just have to wonder, okay, and again, I don't know Bobby Slowick, so I don't know how his personality is. I don't know how he would be, as the head coach there. So that's a question that I would have, and especially after getting feedback that he's not ready, being told that he's not ready to lead an organization. So I don't know.
So my other thing, too, on the Slowick front is that D'Amico Ryans came out, and he said that if he was asked if there was any advice for Bobby, and he said the advice is you only get one shot at this.
Yeah.
And so I think he was talking about the Panthers. I don't think he was talking about here. I think he was talking about the Panthers.
Yeah, I don't know, but
that's the job.
I wouldn't
people
want to
say,
go there.
yeah, people are like, is the Titans a good job? And well, first of all, almost every open job is not a good job. The Patriots right now is not a good team. The Raiders not a good team. It's not. But the one job that I wouldn't want anything to do with is Carolina. Kinston is up next here on our program. Thank you for calling. What's up, Kinston?
What's up, guys? T. Dizzle, what's happening?
Hey, man, good brother.
My guy, welcome back, man. What's up, Jared? Question, in 2018, the Titans interviewed both Mike Vrabel and Matt LaFleur for the head coaching position.
Yeah.
Obviously landed on Vrabel and brought on LaFleur as the OC. Do you see that kind of dynamic with the Titans casting this big, wide net? I think maybe up to 6 or maybe 7 guys right now. Maybe they could do that. Maybe if they bring on the offensive guy, maybe make it a lateral move, but do how Washington kind of did Bieniemy and make him an associate head coach, give him some type of promotion. Do you think that can kind of be the reason behind it? I'll take the comments off air. Good to see you. Have you back, TD. Love
Thank
you,
you.
man.
I appreciate it. Much love, Kinston. Yeah, I mean, that's something you could think about, especially if you look at a guy let's say somehow Brian Callahan didn't get a job, a head coaching job. He could want to come here to be the actual play caller instead of being kind of under Zach Taylor, who's calling the plays, but a part of that game planning being built. That's definitely an option. I don't think it's likely. I think what this organization has to do is arrive upon the best candidate. This is a key. It's a key point for this organization, right? You just lost possibly the best head coach your franchise has seen, right? I mean, Mike Vrabel was that good, in my opinion, right? So you just lost that. So now you got to, how are we going to fill those shoes that are so big, that void that's so big that's left? That's how I would look at it if I was them. So, yeah, I mean, I would just go with the best candidate and then just allow that candidate to bring in the OC that would, or DC, whoever, that would be the best for them, that they feel is the best for them. And remember, that's a part of this whole selling process. I mean, that is what, has been told to us.
Let's go to Paul, who's up next here on the TD Power Hour. What's up, Paul?
Hey, Jared, it's Ron. How's it going, guys?
My man.
Just real quick, been a season ticket holder since the Titans came here. Was at the season opener versus the Bengals 99. I've had enough, and I think it's time that we bring in the offensive coach that we all dream about, that we watch on Sundays and we see these other teams putting up points. It's our turn to do that. And, Jared, I've been right there with you the past couple months, wanting the new coach. I think that we're very fortunate that it worked out the way that you suggested. maybe not with Rand, but at least with Mike. And I think going with the Kyle Shanahan style, if you look 2 years ago with Mike McDaniel, there was a lot of articles and commenters about that saying he was not ready as well, kind of his quirky personality and who he is. Could this be Slovic? Could this be Callahan? Who knows, but I'm very excited, and I really hope that we stay with this. Thanks for the call, guys. I'll hang up and listen.
Yep.
He makes a good point about Mike McDaniel, and because that was something I know a lot of people question with him. Like, how is he going to go in and lead these guys? You know what I mean? But he's going in, and hey, if he says we're going to run through this fire, they're going to run with him. You know what I mean? So yeah, I definitely. And he for some reason my mind went to Mike McDonald, the Ravens DC, who is a very good coach. But I will say this: that team made a huge spike in sacks, and you look at your guy, Jadeveon Clowney, 9.5 sacks. Kyle Van Noy
turned into Javon Curse.
Right, Kyle Van Noy, 9 sacks. There's a guy by the name of Chuck Smith who was a pass rush specialist when he played in the league, and then he had his own school. He's the outside linebackers coach there. It's no coincidence. So, if he comes with them, then that's something you look at. But I think you have to credit a lot of that to what the success that Ravens defense is at.
Quickly, while we're on the Ravens, what do you think of Todd Monken?
Yeah, that's another name that I think would be really good. He's obviously tenured. You look at what he did in Georgia, with the offense there. You look at this Ravens team, and he's shown that he could make the scheme work with the personnel that's provided to him.
He made Lamar better this year, but when I think of him.
Wait a minute. I'm going to tell you who was more instrumental in Lamar being better, and he's a Tennessee guy, T. Martin. T. Martin was a crucial part of that. I know that personally.
The one guy, though, that when I think of Todd Monken is I actually think of how they use Stetson Bennett both as a thrower and a runner at Georgia, and him doing that with Levis.
Yeah, no, definitely a good point.
So I would put that one out there. TD, great to have you back.
Hey, man, it's great to be back. Yeah, for sure, man. I appreciate it, man.
And I feel bad because there are tons of messages in here in text that we didn't get to for questions with TD as always. But TD, appreciate your time. As always, look forward to your insight all throughout the Titans coaching search. And, of course, draft season is right around the corner.
You already know. Much love to everybody. Appreciate you.
Yep, Teron Davenport joining us for the TD Power Hour. As always, and now we're in coach season, so you go from coach season into draft season. Once we know who the coach is going to be, free agency, all of that is all in front of us, which we're very excited about. Coming up next, The Athletic article confirms that apparently something Mike Vrabel did was a pretty important element as to why Mike Vrabel's not here. We'll get to that next. Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Spring Hill Heating and Cooling Game Studios. So let me just say this, as we are in the midst of coach season, and I told you guys on Saturday when I saw the Adam Schefter article come up that things were far from settled in Tennessee, I said, oh boy. I said, one, Schefter never reports on the Titans, and I know he's not a Vrabel source. And so when I saw that, I was like, oh, this is something. And I tweeted out, I said, we are in coach watch season. It's like a tornado watch, which means that the conditions are right for a coach firing. And obviously, we ended up getting that. Now, that being said, what I really, really, really feel vindicated about is really the last 12 weeks or so. And a lot of people have been saying, like on Twitter, and have been texting me and have been saying, like, man, you've really been on this. Like, everybody else thought Vrabel was going to stay and that Vrabel this and Vrabel that, and you thought differently, and you this and you that. And that's great. You know, look, a broken clock is right twice a day. Now, I'd like to think I'm a little bit more right than that, but it does feel like I've been kind of right about a lot of just these little idiosyncrasies that I've heard. And I'm going to tell you why it is. Because I am an expert on the Titans and on Mike Vrabel. And specifically on the way they do things, operate, and communicate. And I go back to this part, the New England comments, in which he said, it's not like this everywhere. Enjoy it. I've been places. It's not like this. And I said, I go, man, that sounds like, is he talking about here? And Ian, even at the time, I asked, I said, am I looking too much into this? And you said that you were. You said that you thought that I was looking into it maybe a little bit too much. From the article in The Athletic, Joe and Diana wrote together, here you go, the speech, the one that Vrabel had, raised some eyebrows in Tennessee. When he returned to Nashville, Vrabel was asked by reporters during a press conference if his comments were directed at the Titans organization. We'll play that in just a second. The whole event did not sit well with Strunk, a team source said. She and Vrabel never talked about it, but she let it fester. So here was the discussion, again, that Mike Vrabel said after he went there, in which I asked on the air, I said, is that just me? Or when he says, like, hey, I've been a lot of places. Wink. It's not like this everywhere. Trust me, I know. And so Gentry asked him about it the next day after they traded Kevin Byard. And this, is what Vrabel said.
Mike, you made a comment during all that that's kind of getting parsed here, talking about...
Who's parsing it, Gentry?
I'm parsing it.
Well, then ask the question, Jared.
What question? When you said that other organizations don't do things as well as the Patriots, and that because you've been there, were you referring to this organization?
They've won six Super Bowls in 20 years. That's what I was alluding to. You know what I mean? I don't know what to tell you. Like, it's just extremely, a lot of success. And, and I guess just probably having talked to, Bill and, Mr. Kraft and the coaches I know they're on staff, I guess that was just my way of, bringing them good luck on Sunday. No, I mean, just the amount of success that they had there, the whole message was just for myself and the former players and everything, just to not take things for granted. Just the because I got traded myself and went to a team that went 6-10, and it was like where you're just trying to find ways to win other than knowing that you're going to win when you show up. It was my whole intent of saying that they've had it pretty good there for 20 years, 6 Super Bowls and however many else they went to. That was it, Jared. So appreciate you. You'll never think like me, Jared. We're nothing alike. So I'm not. I'm the dumbest person in here. I promise you. I guarantee you I'm the dumbest person in here. But we will never think alike in anything that we do. So if you ever want to think how I'm thinking, just think the opposite. think like a dude, think like an athlete, think like a grown man, and then you'll think how I'm thinking.
On a lighter note,
That wasn't light enough for you?
So again, that whole thing, according to The Athletic, bothered her. And as I listened to that, I remember when it happened, and everybody was like, Vrabel clowned you, bro! And I was like, I don't care about that. What I noticed was he made it, it was this giant word salad, and then he kind of turned it around and made it about me. And I almost wonder if Mike Vrabel did that because he thought, when it comes to me, that I could not resist, to make this whole thing about me, and I said this, and that would be knowing the, other person in the conflict pretty well. But what I saw when I saw that was, I was like, he never really addressed it, right? Other than they just had a lot of success, Jared. That's all I was trying to say. It wasn't this, it wasn't that, it wasn't. But he never said, I think it had nothing to do with here. It had to do with my entire career and places I've been. It's great here. We've got to build a winner like we had there. But right now, as far as the way our organization's set up, it's great. And he could have turned the negative of, was he talking about the Titans, into a positive by using that as an opportunity to kiss the owner's tush, which Floyd told me everybody in the league, including Bill Belichick, has to kiss the owner's behind. It's part of the deal of the league. But I just never, all of the little Vrabelese things, I just kept locking onto. And I kept noticing like the passive aggressiveness and things like that. And it's because I know Mike Vrabel. Diana wrote the article around Thanksgiving about how the Titans were going forward with Mike Vrabel. They weren't going to fire him. They weren't going to trade him. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, look, man, they told us Mike Mularkey was going to be the head coach going forward. And then 8 days later fired him. So, like, I mean, come on now. Like, we're not reading that as gospel. And so it's not like I have some incredible spidey sense that I could see ahead of time and say, oh, yeah, this thing is headed for an iceberg. But it's just I knew the two sides. I actually got a little sad yesterday thinking about the fact that when a new coach comes in here, it's going to take me forever to learn the idiosyncrasies of the coach, the way the coach gets mad about things, how the coach, it's going to take me forever to realize what it is, like how this coach operates compared to the last coach, who I truly felt, in spite of his whole, Jared, you'll never have any idea of what I'm thinking. It will truly, I feel like I know where he's going with some of these things. Just like, again, the Ran and Chad and A-Rob every time. It's like, okay, that is a passive-aggressive swing. And so I feel vindicated because everybody, you even heard in that cut when Vrabel was like, who's parsing it? And I put my hand up and said, I am. And you hear people in the, ah! And it's like the media couldn't believe it. But I feel vindicated that no, that wasn't a nothing burger, as Joe said at the time. There was clearly an issue for everybody that said, oh no, Vrabel's not in any danger. I'm like, no, I know him and I know this organization and I know the way he's acting and I know the way that they're acting and I know. And so I guess what I'm saying is where I really feel like, well, I don't want to sit here and say I got it right. It's not about the celebrating getting it right or anything like that. It is about why I felt like I had that intuition of where this was going. When I said on Friday, I was like, this feels like Mike Mularkey, that last kind of day before he got fired, when it was just way too it was uncomfortable. And it's because I've been through this with them before. So I just, again, I am seeing this with the Titans. And this is why I get so mad when it comes to the national media's narrative about Vrabel, about how great he is, and about how the Titans franchise will never, ever, ever, ever be able to come to grips with the fact that they fired the greatest coach who ever walked the planet in Vince Lombardi 2.0, Mike Vrabel, because I know Vrabel. And I know Vrabel's a good coach. I know Vrabel ain't that. I know Vrabel is not this superstar coach. And so I guess I do feel a little vindicated about the last 12 weeks with how, no, this really was a Vrabel wanted final say. And I said last year when they fired John Robinson, I'm like, I could see Vrabel just say, I can do it. And then it says that, it says in there that in The Athletic that Vrabel went to her and said, hey, I want final say on the roster. I think I've earned it. And so I guess it's a long-winded way of saying that the reason why I feel like I got this right is because I knew the coach, I knew the team. And it was all very predictable. This idea that the shotgun marriage between Rand Carthon and Mike Vrabel wasn't going to work. If you knew Mike Vrabel, how could you have ever thought that a shotgun marriage between Mike Vrabel and Rand Carthon was going to work? I mean, how could you ever have thought that? But it's a different day. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. 615-737-1025. Texter says, by the way, that I need to watch some tape when they hire the new coach, and then I need to learn quickly. It's a feel thing. It's like, I'll give you an example. I talked about this. I think I brought this up yesterday, where Vrabel was quoted in The Ringer for saying something, and I asked him about it, and he was like, thanks for keeping up with me, or something like that. And it was Vrabel's passive-aggressive way of basically being like, dude, stop reading everything that I say. Get a life. But that's the job. 615-737-1025. Now, the reports do seem to indicate that Gerard Mayo will be the next coach of the Patriots. I'm not sure I buy that. My gut is telling me Vrabel and Robinson will team up together in New England. But I do have a thought on that I want to get to next, and your phones. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
the whole Vrabel thing in the middle of the year, playing footsie with Kraft in the luxury box, saying, appreciate what you have here. It's not like this everywhere. I mean, it feels tampery.
Definitely.
I mean, but how do you prove it? I'm sure the Titans were all pissed off about it. And part of me doesn't blame them. I mean, it's kind of.
For that to be happening in October was wild.
I mean, just put yourselves in their spot. If you know.
We got a game to win. Like
that was unbelievable.
Yeah.
We've got a game to win. It's not like this everywhere. I mean, it's one thing to go there and take the award during the Titans bye week. I think Vrabel took it a little far. For the Titans to be right, to have their feathers ruffled a little bit. Like, it's just, I mean, if Bill did that with another team, what do you think the Patriots and you people would be doing?
Lawsuit.
You'd be literally in tears. Can you prove tampering? That's a whole nother story.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. The T word, tampering, that was Felger and Maz, Boston radio, saying like, hold on, wait a minute now. That whole Foxborough thing that angered Amy Adams Strunk, according to the Athletic, I'm here for it. Now, all the reports seem to line up that Gerard Mayo might be the next coach of the Patriots. I don't know. My gut when I woke up this morning was that Mike Vrabel was going to be the next coach of the New England Patriots. My gut when the Titans fired Mike Vrabel was that he was going to be the next coach of the New England Patriots. And I felt that way before they fired Mike Vrabel, that he was going to be the next coach of the New England Patriots. And I really thought John Robinson was going to join him. That I really thought that was going to be the sell where, like, hey, it's kind of like the old Patriots era with a Patriots executive as the GM and a Patriot as the coach, and the fans will get behind Vrabel. And I wondered, I was like, could they do that the way things ended here in Tennessee with Robinson and Vrabel? Not that they had issues, but could it be that they could sell to their fans, yeah, they were good in Tennessee and then they were really bad? Or would they say, no, we can't do John Robinson in that, because then people would say, why are we trying to do the Tennessee thing? And then I thought, you know what? They'll just blame the owner. Like, they'll just say, oh, no, Tennessee, that's different. You all know that. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And I said to somebody yesterday, I go, if Vrabel goes to the Patriots, whatever team Vrabel goes to, but especially if it's the Patriots, and especially if John Robinson is with him, which is what I want, they will become the second most important NFL team on this show. Because this will be the A.J. Brown trade on steroids, which is if Mike Vrabel and John Robinson are together with another team and they end up going to the Super Bowl and they win the Super Bowl, they will never forgive the owner around here. Like, you fans will never forgive the owner for that. If this is the city of Cleveland and that's Belichick with his Super Bowls, they will never forgive the owner here. Now, I don't think that's going to happen, because I think Vrabel's a good coach. I don't think Vrabel's that good of a coach. I'm actually, if I had to pick somebody to be more worried about hurting the Titans in the future, Vrabel or Robinson, it would be Robinson, because I do think Robinson I think Robinson's a good talent evaluator. I know Caleb Farley. I know. But I think there's an ability to kind of learn from some of those things. And so if Robinson can learn from the bad and get rid of that and focus on the good, which there was some of that you all want to just say didn't exist, then I'm more worried about Robinson than I am Vrabel. But could you imagine, I mean, if Vrabel and Robinson are together, if Vrabel's coaching the Patriots and the Patriots turn around and go 11-6 next year, oh my God, it'd be wild. So I'm kind of rooting for this. And again, it seems like all the reports say Gerard Mayo is going to be the next coach of the Patriots. And if so, more power to him. But I really want it to be Vrabel. I really want Vrabel to be, because here's the other thing I want with Vrabel. They don't have a quarterback. And they're going to get their quarterback with the third pick in this draft. And so, you know, is Vrabel a good enough coach to be able to develop a quarterback? All I ever hear from all these national media people is, oh, the roster wasn't good enough. It's not Vrabel's fault. Vrabel's great. Vrabel's such a great. He's Vince Lombardi. The Titans didn't even have a franchise before Mike Vrabel existed. And I don't believe any of that, but I do wonder if you give him Jaden Daniels, can he actually coach up Jaden Daniels into becoming a great player at the NFL level? I don't know the answer there. So it'd become every week, it would be a heat check of like, Vrabel, he's won 8 in a row. And boy, people will get mad if Vrabel's good. Oh my goodness. It'll be like A.J. Brown, but it'll be worse because it'll be a coach, and it'll be a coach that you chose to fire. Whereas with A.J., it was like, well, A.J.'s a little issue in the locker room. A.J. won the contract. A.J. this, A.J. that. And this is different. Trey is up next. Our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and he has been waiting patiently. Trey, go ahead.
Hey, what's up, Jared? Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Hey, awesome. First off, the nightmare that you just painted, that scenario, the one good thing John Robinson did with Mike Vrabel is give him Matt LaFleur. I think looking back, he made the most of Mariota, and it was probably a good highlight for a stint there, and obviously he's one of the best play callers in the league now.
I hated Matt LaFleur here. He stuck Derrick Henry on the bench, and I didn't like that.
Well, I mean, again, quarterback play, it's one of those things that if he does get a quarterback and he wants to develop him, J-Rob could probably pair him with a guy to be able to do that. But that's not why I called. I wanted to call and give you props because this whole week started with your league source, and I was curious to know, looking at what Joe Rexrode and Diana Rossetti put out today, did you see things that either confirmed further of what you heard or even conflicting reports as far as, well, I heard this, and things you could look further into? Or I know you probably don't want to get into speculation, but just curious to know and pick your brain, and I'll hang up and listen.
Yeah, I thought the one thing that Joe and I talked about this or whatever off the air, but one thing in there was that I have been told that Vrabel wanted somebody above him and Ram. Like that he wanted a czar of football, that he wanted it for next season going forward or whatever. And what was written in the Athletic story is that Vrabel went to Amy Adams Strunk before they hired Ran Carthon and said he would be better off as a assistant GM than he would be as a GM, that he wasn't ready to be a GM and that he'd be better off as assistant GM than a GM. And so I think those things are kind of the same, right? But I just don't know, was that after or before? And so those are things we're kind of talking about. And again, when it comes into, my league source was not with the Titans. And so it's like, he heard something from one guy, and then this is what, and then Joe heard something from another guy who heard, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's a game of telephone. It's not going to exactly line up to be equal. And then the other thing that I've learned, not in this process, but I've learned this over the last couple of years, is you can get something from somebody, and the next day they'll tell somebody else the opposite. Or they'll say the opposite publicly. And I've just learned, think about Diana's reporting on all of this. Diana's reporting was, he's not going anywhere. They're committed to him. He's for sure, he's there. And then it was something changed in the last 6 weeks, according to Diana. And then today, Diana's piece said they thought about firing him last year, which I quite frankly don't believe. But again, it's not that I don't believe Diana. I don't necessarily believe that. It's not that I don't believe Diana. It's that I don't believe that part of it. Not from her, but from whoever told her. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. We'll roll through some more of your phones. 615-737-1025. Stillman & Company, 102.5-106.3 The Game.
I can definitely make the case this is the worst team on paper. I think it's worse than Carolina, and that's a shaky situation because of the owner. So wait a second. Mike Vrabel, you want to follow Bill Belichick with a bare cupboard here with no quarterback? Yeah. Okay, I got Robert Kraft, so you got that. And it's a great organization just because he's a completely absentee owner. He doesn't meddle at all. He just wants to show up on Sunday and sit up in his box with the guest of the day. Maybe it's Keyshawn, right? And
eat sushi and drink fine wine.
Well, that's what they do, which is great. It's great for the head football coach as long as the head football coach has Tom Brady and he's winning championships. Well, they did win in 2018. It wasn't that long ago. They won their last championship. Well, the expectations remain very high in New England. So they know Super Bowls, plural, like 6 of them. So now what? I don't, to me, it's a scary job.
Skip Bayless today. I would love to see Vrabel and Robinson try to rebuild that, or Vrabel and Reidencowden, or whatever, in New England. Try to be the guy that replaces the guy. So again, the reporting seems like Gerard Mayo is the favorite to get that job and not Mike Vrabel. Cameron texts in and says, Amy Adams Strunk got so thoroughly played by Robert Kraft that she ended up giving him exactly what he wanted for free. It feels like the reveal at the end of a movie. We don't know that yet because, and this is why I truly believe that Vrabel wanted to get fired. I mean, it just seems too obvious based off of all the smoke. Again, I want to be here as long as we can win. But I still think he wanted to get fired, and I still think he wanted to get fired because, as I said on Monday, I heard Patriots or Washington, and to not count Washington out as far as Vrabel's concerned. So I did hear that, and maybe he ends up going to Washington, which, again, that's another rebuild with a young quarterback. But could you imagine if he doesn't end up getting the New England job? Then where's he going to go? It feels like Harbaugh's going to the Chargers. The Chargers are already interviewing minority candidates that are not connected to NFL teams like Leslie Frazier so that they can get that out of the way. And because Jim Harbaugh is not with another NFL team, they would not have to wait until the divisional round of the playoffs to hire Jim Harbaugh. So the Chargers hire Harbaugh, so they're out for Vrabel. It doesn't make a lot of sense in Atlanta where they have to get the quarterback position right for Vrabel to go there. If he doesn't get the Patriots job, there isn't one of these jobs where it's like, that would be a good fit for Vrabel. Now, the job I would love to see Vrabel take is Carolina, because if he wins with that ownership, woo, and that's a mess over there in Carolina. But you can't sit here and tell me that she messed up. The only way that she messes up in this is if the Patriots end up getting Vrabel for nothing and you don't get your first choice at head coach. If you end up getting choice 87, then that you could have waited and you could have seen what you could have gotten or whatever. But there's going to be competition for a Bobby Slowick or a Brian Callahan or a Ben Johnson. So if that's the guy you want, then I would not say that it's worth the pick in order to sit around and waste your time. But so I'm not going to say she got played by Robert Kraft. Texture says Vrabel to the Seahawks. Seems like there's too much smoke about Dan Quinn up there. I don't want to start saying, oh, yeah, he's for sure going there because, we've seen this time and time again where it seems like it's a slam dunk and then it ends up not happening. But I don't know. If you're Seattle, do you look at your team and say, Vrabel would be a great fit here because we have Geno Smith at quarterback and he was successful with Ryan Tannehill? Or does it make you nervous of, we've got Drew Lock and Geno Smith, and we're probably going to have to draft or develop a quarterback or go get a young quarterback, so we should have an offensive coach that could do that. Texture says, have you heard anything about Dave Canales as a potential head coaching candidate? I think the Panthers are the only ones to request an interview so far. He was able to turn Baker Mayfield back into a playoff quarterback, and as a quarterback coach, get Geno Smith a new starter contract. I am a fan of not knowing very much of him, but I am a fan of Mike Canales. Texter says, do we really think that Carolina is that much better off than Tennessee? Did anybody say Carolina was better off than Tennessee? I would not take the Carolina job. Like, Ben Johnson turned it down last year, and then there was a report from Diana Rossini during the season that sources say Ben Johnson didn't feel like he was ready for a head coaching job last year, but sources say Ben Johnson feels like he is ready for a head coaching job this year. And I'm like, okay, so Ben Johnson told Diana that, yeah, I'm ready for a head coaching job. But he should thank his lucky stars he didn't take that Panthers job. I don't want anything to do with that impatient, entitled owner. Nothing to do with that guy. And I feel bad for Bryce Young. So no, I don't think Carolina's better off than Tennessee. Texter says, any chance the national media is high on Vrabel, but the rest of the league leadership knows what his deficiencies are like we do? No. I think reputation in the NFL really matters. Like, I really believe that you are what your reputation says you are. You know, Will Levis, for instance, like I talked to Liam Cohen, the offensive coordinator at Kentucky. I talked to him before the draft. And he was like, this kid is the best kid. He said, he'll be over at my house with me and my wife. He puts in the work. He cares about his teammates. Yeah, he made some boneheaded decisions on the field last year. And yeah, I don't want to bash Kentucky, but we didn't do our best to support him, even though Cohen wasn't there that year. But he's just a great kid, great quarterback. Liam Cohen told me he's Josh Allen. And every team in the league, including this one, passed on him. Every team that needed a quarterback. Arthur in Atlanta. We're better off with Desmond Ridder. Tampa Bay. We think Baker's will be okay. So every single one of these teams, including you, looked at Will Levis and said, nah. And a lot of that is reputation-based. So you don't get to completely know somebody, which takes me back to Vrabel. We know the Craig Aukerman thing. We know the Vrabelese and the passive aggressiveness. We know about the offensive line coach. We know about how he loves certain players who stink, like Aaron Brewer. We know that. Texter says Vrabel to Alabama. Now, I'm not going to rule this out, okay? I'm not saying that I think it's going to happen because I don't. I feel very firmly implanted in James Franklin as the next Alabama coach. He's the one guy who would leave the job that he's got right now, even if Penn State were willing to match the Alabama money. So Steve Sarkisian, they're going to reach out to him. They've already reached out to Danny Lanning, and he's going to get a contract at Oregon. He's going to get more money. They're going to reach out to Sarkisian at Texas. He's going to get more money. Kalen DeBoer at Washington, I don't know what he's going to do if they call and reach out. He might stay up there because they'll probably offer him the same amount of money, and it's like, well, I'd rather be here in Washington than go to Alabama, and like whoever takes over the Patriot job is going to have to be the guy who takes over the Bama job. I'd rather just, not be the guy that follows the guy. And then there's James Franklin, who would sit there and would say, I can do it. I can go to Alabama, and Alabama will give me a chance to win the national championship, which Penn State won't. It'll fail miserably, by the way. But that's my called shot there on James Franklin. But here's why I'm not going to rule Vrabel to Alabama out. Because I don't know who is a coach that would satisfy what Alabama is looking at, what Alabama can sell to themselves as this guy is worthy of the job succeeding Nick Saban. And I think they could convince themselves Vrabel is. It's not as obvious as Ohio State, which would be a slam dunk. But it is, again, it's a very tricky job to try to hire. 615-737-1025. We're back to your phone, 615-737-1025. Plus, I got a little sad today, just thinking about where we are in the football world. We'll get to that coming up next. Stillman and Company, 615-737-1025 if you want to weigh in. Preds Pick to Click. By the way, I have got to call TJ Anderson of TJ Anderson Homes of Benchmark Realty. I got to call him back. But tomorrow is your chance to participate in Preds Pick to Click. If you correctly guess a Preds player that scores a goal in the Preds game tomorrow night, you win a pair of tickets to an upcoming Preds home game. Participate with Robbie and Rexroad tomorrow at 8:45. Pick to Click is brought to you by TJ Anderson Homes of Benchmark Realty. List your home with TJ to get your home seen, heard, and sold.
The fans here are amazing. There's so many memories of the fans, the send-offs, the parades, the Sundays. whatever the situations are. The letters of support, seeing the fans, away from here, at a gas station or a grocery store, or, where you bump into them. Patriot fans here, and not just in New England, but they extend nationally and even internationally as I've traveled. It's amazing how far the arm reaches. We saw that this year in Germany. So appreciative of the fans for all the support they've given me, my family, and this football team. And it's with just so many fond memories and thoughts that I think about the Patriots, and I'll always be a Patriot. I look forward to coming back here, but at this time, we're gonna move on, and I look forward. I'm excited for the future, but always very, very appreciative of the opportunity here, the support here, and what you've done for me. Thank you.
William F. Belichick signing off as Patriots head coach today. And I got to say, I've known for months and months and months that this was coming with Bill Belichick. I think we all knew. Some of you people out there just could not envision Robert Kraft pulling the trigger on Bill Belichick, but it had to happen. And yet, when it actually went down, to see Bill up there in a suit and Bill up there in a tie and Bill up there getting sentimental, which he never does, I got a little sad. And I got sad thinking about how in a 24-hour span, the Floyd Reese crew, his guys, Nick Saban, Bill Belichick, Pete Carroll, all out. Now, Nick was his own choice. By the way, did you see the story from 24/7 Sports that Saban called a team meeting for yesterday and that he was working all throughout the day, including interviewing a new wide receivers coach, and Saban was as animated as usual, if not more animated and involved in the SEC coaches conference call on Wednesday. And then at 4 o'clock told the team he was retiring. Something not right there with Saban. Either that or Saban is just freaking maniacal. Like, it's just like, I'm going to work every second of my contract until I tell that team that I'm retired. All right? But, man, it is sad. I mean, Bill Belichick has been the coach of the New England Patriots since I was in the 5th grade. I started watching football 1 year before Bill Belichick was coach of the Patriots. It's crazy to me. Ron is up next here on the program. Thank you for calling and waiting. What's up, Ron?
Hey, Jared. Hey, can you maybe open something up for me? How do these coaches, when they get fired, like say Vrabel, for example, when they get fired, they're still on their contract and they go to college or to another NFL team or downgrade to a assistant coach position, do they still get their money that's owed to them when they're fired? I'm just wondering how that all works in college and NFL.
Yeah, so there are offsets in the contract, and I totally hear what you're saying, and I appreciate your call. I used to think, remember Mike Brown, the old basketball coach? Mike Brown was coach of the Cavaliers, and then they thought LeBron didn't like him, so they fired him, and then they brought him back, and then LeBron was a free agent, so they fired him again, and then he went to the Lakers, and they fired him, and he just kept getting fired like every year. And I was like, man, must be nice. 7-year contract, 5-year contract, 7-year. And a coach at the time said that's not how that works. So if Vrabel gets another job, the way I understand it is the Titans wouldn't be paying Vrabel any more money. If Vrabel doesn't get another job, then the Titans will be paying Vrabel for what, the next 3 years? 2 years? I think it's 2 years. 24-25, they would be paying Vrabel. But I'm not sure that should matter to any of us because, I mean, it's not our money. Like, that's their money. And it's not like, again, I don't believe in the salary cap, and you guys do. But I there's not a cap on owner spending for coaches. So I don't worry about that very much. And I remember the one thing I'll give Amy credit for is that, man, she does not mind paying out a contract. Now, I wouldn't say she's like Tepper, who will pay out any contract, but, I mean, they didn't care about paying Wisenhunt's contract out. When Wisenhunt was just crapping the bed around here, all I heard from the veteran media people at the time, And I can still hear the late, great Mark Howard in my head right now, basically scoffing at the idea that they'd fire Whisenhunt because they owed him for the next 3 years. And I remember hearing that and being like, well, I guess we're stuck with this bozo. And then they fired him. And then they fired Malarkey, and they had to pay him, I think, for another year. And they fired John Robinson, and they got to pay him for all these years. Now they're firing Vrabel. And they're firing Vrabel with the understanding that if Vrabel doesn't get another job, Vrabel can go to Park City, Utah, and hang out on the slopes, and they're going to have to pay him. And they know that. Now, I think they think he's going to get another job, but I also think they understand how this works. Drew says James Franklin to Alabama is a hard pass. Again, I spent all day today before the show talking with a guy who used to play at Bama, and he was like, Danny Lanning's going to be our guy. And I was like, Danny Lanning is not leaving Oregon. Oregon has as much money, if not more, than Alabama. And whatever happens, if he stays at Oregon, it's like, that's our coach. He turned down Alabama for us. And then when they go 8-4, the fans will forgive it. If he goes to Alabama, that Pac-12 championship game loss they had to Washington, that's not going to be received very well in Tuscaloosa. And Danny Lanning knows it. So why do that? Why would Sark, who just got to the playoff at Texas, why would he go to Alabama? So the question has to be, who is somebody in college football that's at a big-time job that has a, big enough name that they could bring in who would be like, I'll do it. And to me, that's James Franklin. I mean, you can only get who's out there. It's like free agency. You can't just, Bear Bryant, you're in. You can't do it like that. Texter says, if Vrabel gets a college job, could he double dip? I don't think so. I think it is specific to that is, no. I think the way it works is like, let's say Vrabel was owed $10 million to coach. I have no idea how much he made. I think I read somewhere on the internet it was like 9.5, but I don't think those things are true anyway, so who knows. But let's say it was $10 million and Vrabel gets 9 to coach in college, then I think he gets $1 million from the Titans. I do believe. The text line is now arguing consistently about people that are hoping and praying that James Franklin ends up at Alabama and people who think that there's absolutely no shot.
The Bama fans and the not Bama fans.
I'm thinking that's what this is.
Bama fans are like, no, please, no James Franklin. All the not Bama fans are like, oh, that'd be fun.
Texter says, do we think Rand Carthon believes in Will Levis? We know Mike Vrabel and Ryan Cowden did. So here's a problem of that athletic story that did bother me, where it said that Ryan Cowden ran the draft board. So what that means is that the stacking of the board, how we rank the players, how they're graded, what are their medical shields, what are their personnel shields, those kind of things were all kind of set in place with a specific system that was used by the last administration. Well, Rand Carthon comes in, and instead of saying, all right, everybody, we're doing things differently, he comes in and says, all right, I will adjust to this system. So that was Ryan Cowden who was running that system. But it doesn't mean that Ryan Cowden was making the draft choices. Rand Carthon was very much involved in that. And I didn't even need to, the way they phrased it in The Athletic to a novice would make you think that it was Ryan Cowden making the picks, but that's not what happened. Chad Withrow will join us from Outkick. We'll get his reaction to the spot the Titans are in, the way the national media just thinks the Titans are the stupidest organization in the history of the NFL, and where they go from here. We'll do that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. Live from the Spring Hill Heating and Cooling Studios. Chad Withrow, kind enough to move from Friday to Thursday since Barry Trotz, after the news of Mike Vrabel's firing, decided to move from, we were able to move. Barry was kind enough to move to Friday tomorrow. So Chad Withrow joins us now on the program from Outkick, right off the hot mic set. Chad, I want to open the floor up to you. Your thoughts on the 4 days so far this week that we have had in both Titanland and in the NFL.
So, Jared, I had to switch.
Oh, did we lose him? I froze up. Clay Travis got to pay for better internet. Oh, he froze up. Oh, now he's unfrozen. Go ahead again, Chad.
I need the question one more time. The internet is fine. Outkick pays for great internet. I just realized that I was on someone else's internet while in here. So now I'm on the proper internet. So now I should be good to go.
Okay, all right. So your thoughts, just opening up the floor to you on the week that we've had with the Titans and everything else that's gone on in the league.
Yeah, it leads me to believe that the Titans have an ownership problem now, because we all know, and I think we get carried away with good ownership, bad ownership, because really how we look at ownership is how good is the coach and the players and how much winning are they doing. If you hire the right person and you leave them alone, then it's a good ownership group, whether that's really true or not.
Sure, like Bill Poley and Tony Dungy and Peyton Manning made Jim Irsay look competent, and since they've all been gone, Jim Irsay looks like Jim Irsay.
Well, Robert Kraft, we think of Robert Kraft as a great owner. I mean, I think it's a pretty cool gesture to say, we're not going to try to use Bill Belichick as an asset, given all he's done for us, and not try to trade him. So it was best to part ways. I respect all that. And I do think he's a good owner. But what Robert Kraft did was he hired Bill Belichick, and he got really lucky with Tom Brady and what he became. And he sat back and just let them do their thing. And that's why we think of him as a good owner. Amy Adams Strunk doesn't seem to be that owner anymore when it comes to the Titans. And I'm not saying that you should be some shrinking violet that doesn't say or do anything and stay away the whole time. And it's your team, ultimately, so you have the right to do whatever you want. But there's a little bit too much meddling going on right now. And you go back in the last year and a half history of this team, and I've read the Rossini reports with Joe Rexrode and everything else, and her leaving the Dolphins game with 4:38 left, down 14, angry, and just the bits of rage that I've heard about Amy Adams Strunk with Mike Vrabel. That's not really what I think of when I think of great ownership in the NFL, right? She's not David Tepper chucking her drink at a fan, but she's also not Robert Kraft, the Rooney family, the top levels of NFL ownership. But Jared, ultimately comes down to one thing, and that is hire the right coach, hope like hell that Rand Carthon is the right GM, and stay the hell out of the way. That's really, if I'm just going to write a guidebook for ownership, that would be my lesson to Amy Adams Strunk on this. Is she going to do that? I would say the last 18 months shows us that she absolutely will not, and that gives me cause for concern in this franchise.
So here's something that's been bothering me, because I'm almost arguing with myself about this, so I'll let you decide it for me, which is, on one hand, like 6 years for a head coach is not like a short time frame in the NFL. I mean, it's not Mike Tomlin, but it is, that's probably the average length of a coaching tenure in the NFL. And that's how long Vrabel was here for. And yet it feels like it's this constant shell game with the Titans and the ownership about we got to fire this guy. And so, John Robinson's right, Mike Mularkey's out. Then John Robinson's wrong, but Mike Vrabel stays. Then Mike Vrabel's out, but now Rand Carthon stays. It's like it's a constant moving thing. And then again, Robinson was here for 7 years and Mularkey was here for 6 years, or Vrabel was here for 6 years. So maybe I am oversimplifying it. How do you feel about that?
Well, first off, Jared, I should have said this to begin, but I was switching Wi-Fi throughout it, so I couldn't. Kudos to you for being way more right than wrong throughout all this on all things Titans. And I don't think many people in media are going to give you the credit for that, because quite frankly, a lot of people in media, for whatever reason, don't like you. And we have fallen into this era of, because I don't like someone, I'm not going to listen to them and I'm not going to give them credit, and they've never done anything right. And I do think that's a shame. regardless of what there's plenty of people I don't really like personally or don't like their personality, but when they do a good job, I'll acknowledge it. Or when they write a good column, I'll acknowledge it. Or when they're dead right on the Titans and the state of the team, while literally everyone else in this market was dead wrong. They were fed a bunch of lies from the Titans organization or their sources, and they regurgitated them back up to their public, their audience the whole time. And their audience, for whatever reason, continues to just sop it right up with a biscuit. All that regurgitation the whole time and not acknowledge the fact that you were right and they were wrong. I think that's a shame. So I wanted to say that. Now, what were we talking about before that?
The moving targets, about how it's, this guy's fault today and then it's that guy's fault tomorrow and so on and so forth.
Yeah, look, here's my issue with Amy Adams Strunk. I think that she is married to an organizational flowchart and not ultimate success. This is what I didn't like. That second paragraph in the release from the Titans, where she's talking about being aligned and cooperation and collaboration, I think was one of the words she used. I just don't like that. Again, the ultimate goal of the NFL owner is to hire the right GM, hire the right coach, let them get the right players and stay out of the way. And when you're talking about, well, we need someone that's going to be in line with this newfangled idea from the league office of how an organization should run, and we are cutting edge with our football operations and what we want to do as a team, and we need to hire a coach that's aligned with that vision. I don't want to hear that. You know what I want to hear, Jared? We're going to hire the best damn coach available, and they're going to win. And that's our expectation. And they need to get along with people in the building in order to win. That is a prerequisite for the job. If no one likes you and you can't get along and work with anyone, you're probably not going to be a good leader, and you're not going to be a good coach. If I'm Rand Carthon and I'm asked the question about what am I looking for in the next coach, I'm looking for a winner that can communicate well and work with other people and get the job done that we need to get the job done here, right now. That's it. I don't care about the organizational chart. I don't care about some collaboration with GM and coach. I don't care about any of that. I'm hearing way too much about that. And I think it's a danger if you're married to an organizational chart and not the ultimate goal in the NFL, which is winning. And I fear that's what Amy Adams Strunk is.
Chad Withrow is with us on the program. What did you think of Rand Carthon's press conference?
I thought it was a dumpster fire. I think that any NFL GM, that part of the job is to be able to speak to the media and be clear in your vision of what you're saying and what you want to do. I do not think that's too much to ask. I understand that Rand Carthon is in his first year. I give him a little bit of leniency on that. But when you reach the point in your career where you're being hired to be an NFL general manager, it is no one's fault but your own if you're not equipped with the ability to stand or sit at a podium or a desk and take questions from media and answer their questions. I thought they failed with that. I thought Amy Adams Strunk failed him, quite frankly, also, because he wasn't even in the room when Vrabel was fired, and then he's asked to go out there, but kind of like Mike Vrabel was asked to go out there and answer for his mistakes throughout the year also. But he's asked to go out there and answer for things he really didn't seem to know a lot about or that he was willing to discuss. And I do think that you need to be able to answer what traits you're looking for in a head coach. I thought that part was ridiculous. Look, I'm not totally out on Rand Carthon. I'm willing to give the guy more than 1 year to prove himself. But, Jared, I know we've talked about this on your show a ton. I just don't know what evidence you're taking with Rand Carthon to give you a lot of positivity moving forward. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not one to sit here. I'd like to think of myself ultimately as a realist that leans toward being an optimist. And if I'm being a realist about it, I just say there's no proof that he's going to be successful based on his track record. Now, I'm going to be an optimist about it too. I don't think there's a ton of proof that says he's going to be a total failure either, because we haven't seen enough of it yet. We haven't seen him work with the media enough. We haven't seen enough draft classes. We haven't seen enough off seasons. He could turn it around. They've got, I know you think the salary cap is fake, but I'll say it anyway. They've got cap room to work with this offseason. They're going to have a high draft pick. They're going to have a chance to develop around a young quarterback that they believe in, and a lot of the league seems to believe in. So let's go prove it. You know, that he's still got a chance to make good on a lot of things. He just hasn't done it yet.
I would say my biggest issue with the Rand Carthon press conference, there's two things. First off, number one, if you can't articulate the vision, then how can I expect you to execute the vision? That's the first thing. The second thing is the questions he was asked at the press conference weren't really all that difficult or unexpected, right? Like the offensive line. Why was it so bad this year? Like that would have been asked no matter what. Or questions about, why did Amy decide to make the move? If you and Mike collaborated great, why was that? And it was almost like he didn't have the authority to speak on those things. And I'm like, if I'm a general manager, most owners hire and fire the coach. Like I know that the GM is above the coach in most organizational flow charts, but you would agree with me that most of the time the owner is involved in a coach and a quarterback situation. And
yeah.
Well,
no, sorry.
No. But I think like you'd agree with me about that, about the owner being involved. And so, yeah, it was her decision. But every time he was asked about it, it was just like, oh, yeah, Miss Amy had her reasons and she said it in her statement. Like they need to have a meeting before he goes out there to represent the franchise to say, okay, what's our story here? And then he needs to get out there and take ownership of the decision so that it shows that he has the authority to run the organization and not the guy that has to, I got to go upstairs and check with my bosses about everything. And that was the vibe I got from that press conference.
Yeah, and I don't know this to be the case because I don't know. Again, it's been a big mystery about what level of authority anyone really has with personnel and everything else. But I can only go by what I hear and see from Rand Carthon. He sounded like a middle manager and not a general manager.
Mm-hmm.
He sounded like someone that comes down from the 8th floor of a corporate office that talks to you before you talk to the boss, that's trying to understand your complaints before they go to the big boss that can actually get something done, and that maybe he's not the person that actually gets things done. That's the way he answered questions, because we've seen general managers or people in leadership that can go in front of a group of people and speak with some level of authority and speak like they know what they're doing. That was not Rand Carthon. He sounded to me like a guy answering questions, trying not to get in trouble by either the owner or by the players on the team. Because I don't give a damn. I would have buried the offensive line and just said, you know what? It starts with me on that, but we made some mistakes there. And I'm not going to get into specifics on the mistakes, but that clearly wasn't good enough. And we got to get better as a group. And that starts with coach and coaching staff. And it also starts with me ultimately. You can say that. What's going to be wrong with saying that? I think so many times people default to, boy, if I just don't step into that gray area and don't talk about it, I'm going to come across much better. And then when you start to blame injuries on it or not want to talk about it, I think you just come across
their way
worse as opposed to being honest. The most confident people in sports are also the ones that will be most honest with media or anyone when talking about things, because they have that level of confidence, because they've accomplished a lot and they feel secure in where they are. Rand Carthon didn't sound like he was overly secure in his role as general manager. He sounded more like a middle manager.
Chad Withrow is with us. We hit the hot seat. We got a lot of coaching and Nick Saban and all kinds of stuff to get to. We'll do that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 for the game. Chad Withrow is with us from Outkick. Chad, the hot seat. Let's get right to it. Ian, you got my bell for me?
I sure do.
Okay. Number one, what is the likelihood that the Titans find the next great coach like Sean McVay?
Pretty low, I would say. I think hearing, the reports from Diana Rossini that they're not looking at Bill Belichick or Jim Harbaugh shows me that they're looking for someone that's going to be more agreeable, that's not going to demand much power, that will work within that organizational chart that Amy Adams Strunk is so married to moving forward. And I think you just got to hope to get lucky, right? I mean, if it's Ben Johnson from the Lions or whoever it is, you got to hope that you find the guy that's that next up and coming guy. But I mean, to me, it's a 25-30% proposition. You're going to do that. I mean, we could all sit here and go to the top coordinators in the league. I can Google search it and find the top guys. It's not hard to get guys to go interview, right? Oh, this side of the ball has been good for this team, and McDonald has been good on defense for the Ravens, and Monken's been good. So it's not hard to go find those guys. To me, it's just about getting lucky. If you're not willing to hire a proven coach from somewhere, which they're not, they want to hire a first-time coach, then to me it's just a crapshoot. And they got it right with Vrabel. So maybe they do it for a second straight time, but I don't know. I'd put it, let's say 30% that they're going to find that next great coach.
I actually looked it up today at CBS 3 years ago. Number one coach of the offseason, Brandon Staley. Number two coach of the offseason, Urban Meyer. And I was like, yeah, seems about right.
Hey, Urban Meyer's available. He's in TV right now, but if you want to hire him, he's out there. So
he is available. Where is Mike Vrabel going to go? It does seem like the smoke is pointing toward Gerard Mayo in New England.
Yeah, I think Vegas would make some sense if they don't elevate Pierce in that role. I think Washington would make sense for him or Bill Belichick. It may come down to Bill Belichick or Mike Vrabel in Washington also. But if I had to pick a spot that's not – I mean, I'm going to still go New England. I'll kind of believe that when I see it. I think Gerard Mayo's got a chance at Tennessee possibly if he doesn't get the Patriots job. Could be an opportunity. So I'm going to go Patriots 1, Raiders 2 for landing spots for Mike Vrabel. But I do believe he's going to get one of these available jobs. We got a quarter of the league right now that's without a coach. Vrabel's going to get one of those spots.
Mm-hmm. I didn't think about the Raiders. I just feel like Pierce is going to be the guy there. Which potential candidate, and again, we'll take Harbaugh and Belichick out, as reported by Diana Rossini. Which potential candidate is your favorite candidate for the Titans?
By the way, Brady also, ownership in Vegas, possibly with Vrabel to keep in mind there.
I don't think he got approved for that.
Yeah, he will, though. It's going to happen.
I think there's a problem with him doing the Fox games that there's like some kind of league rule or something, or I don't know.
Well, if he does the Fox games for a year, then in a year he'll get approved and do it. So something to look at there. Look, I'm going to go with John McClain we had on our show today, and he mentioned Bobby Slowick as a guy, and I know you love him too, and what he's done with the Texans. I'll go with him, but Jared, quite frankly, NFL coaching searches bore me for the most part because we're talking about a bunch of young offensive coordinators.
Yeah.
I mean, you could throw those guys in a hat, pick a name out, and hope one of them becomes Sean McVay, or hope one of them becomes, Kevin O'Connell or Mike McDaniel or the next hot, young, offensive-minded coach. So I don't know that I really have a preference right now, but I do like the upside of what he's done with the Texans. Now, John also said he thinks he's a year away from getting a head coaching job, but that, he's smart enough to know not to go to Carolina and that Tennessee would be the type of job that he would want if given the opportunity. So I'm going to go with him, but I really think you could just pull a name out of the hat with all those guys and hope you get it right.
Well, here's the thing that drives me crazy is when I see like people on Twitter that are like, oh, I love how Ben Johnson, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, you have no idea how much of that was Ben Johnson or how much of that was somebody else. You have no idea. So the only thing for me when it comes to these guys is, interview them. You bring them all in a room, all these young coordinators, Frank Smith of the Dolphins and this guy from Detroit and this guy from Houston and Monken, bring them all in the room, interview them, and then say, which one we like best? Which one do we think is going to be the best coach? Him? All right, he's the guy.
Let me give you one, too. If you're truly in love with Will Levis, okay, I'm not. But if you're the Titans and you're truly in love with Will Levis, the future at quarterback, and you want to help him out the most, why are we not talking about Liam Cohen?
As a head coach in the NFL?
Yes. I mean, why is he so much different from all these other guys?
So I've thought about this.
He's been a coordinator in college, but I mean, if you're really into developing the quarterback, why not go back to the guy that got the most out of him in college and who was on the Sean McVay coaching tree of offensive-minded football guys? I'm just saying bring him in for an interview. I'm not saying he's the guy you target, but if you're truly interested in maximizing Levis and getting the most out of the quarterback, I'd talk to him.
Cohen is the guy that I would target. You know, if they bring over, say, one of these McVay, Shanahan guys to be the head coach, Cohen would be the guy that I would target to be the offensive coordinator. Just as kind of the buffer between the coach and Levis. Kind of the way Matt LaFleur was with Jared Goff, with he and Sean McVay. Okay, who would you rather hire today, Bill Belichick or Pete Carroll?
Pete Carroll. It's weird, and I'm going just, gut reaction here. Pete Carroll just seems so much more youthful to me. I feel like he still has something left in the tank. I'm not saying Bill Belichick doesn't. I think he'll go somewhere. I think he's going to pass Don Shula's record for NFL wins somewhere else. But if you're asking me who I would hire, it's Pete Carroll. I do think that he still has a youthful energy about him where I think that he could really, get something done somewhere else. So I'm going to go Carroll.
I would go with Carroll as well, which takes me to the next one on the list, which is where do Bill and Pete end up?
So I'm going to go Belichick to Washington. That just makes the most sense with Josh Harris and this celebrity tag team that he's formed there.
They got a basketball GM.
Yeah, let's get Bob Myers in here. Let's get all the basketball guys. Magic Johnson's on that advisory panel and on the ownership group. So it feels like they're going to go, celebrity, big name. So I'll go Belichick to Washington. I don't think Pete Carroll's getting a job.
Oh, no.
Even though you and I both say, Jared, that we'd go with him over Belichick, I don't think he's going to get a job in this cycle. So if I'm leaning towards I'm leaning towards him being done, going into television, not coaching this year. Final answer.
Man, Pete's too good of a coach for that. Like, he's still coaching well. I was shocked yesterday when I saw that they fired him.
Would you want the Titans to hire him?
What's that?
Do you want the Titans to hire him?
So yesterday I said no, and then I thought about it last night, and I kind of retracted that a little bit, and I walked it back earlier today, and he wouldn't be my favorite choice, but I wouldn't be against it because I think that this organization needs a leader at the top who can have final say, and Pete has had that in Seattle, and maybe, if nothing else, really develop Ran into what John Schneider's become in Seattle, and that would be – so I wouldn't be against it. I mean, it wouldn't be a 10-year plan, but I wouldn't be against it.
If you think, Jared, that they're going to hire someone that's going to have final say and be the ultimate leader of the organization, I think that's a pipe dream.
Oh, I think they're going to.
Given what we've heard from Amy Adams Strunk about someone that's going to go with the new way of the NFL and going to be a collaborator with Rand Carthon and everyone else, they're going to hire someone that's going to be along those lines. That's going to listen to everyone.
When she said to Mike Keith that she would let everybody know who had final say, and she's not ready to say that today, I took that to mean that there's a pretty good chance it's going to be the coach.
I took that to mean it's going to be Rand Carthon because she didn't fire Rand Carthon when she had the chance. She fired Mike Vrabel instead. So final say passed from John Robinson to Mike Vrabel, and then Mike Vrabel got fired.
Mike Vrabel didn't have final say. It said it in The Athletic. He wanted final say, and they said no.
Well, it's going to depend on the coach, Jared, but the fact they don't want to get a Jim Harbaugh or a Bill Belichick, if that's immediately ruled out, that tells me they are going to go with someone that's top quality is agreeable. That's what they want, agreeable with the owner and with the GM, not someone that's going to jump up and down on a table and tell everyone what offensive tackle to draft in the first round.
Who is going to be Alabama's next coach?
I'm going to go with what my guy Ryan Leaf on today's show told us. Mike Loxley from Maryland. We know it's not Lanning. Norvell's posting stuff on Twitter today that doesn't look like it's going to be him. I think Lane Kiffin does not want to follow a legend for a second time and fail the way he did Pete Carroll at USC. Doesn't want to go down that road. He's got a great thing going at Ole Miss. I don't think it's going to be him. Not going to be Dabo. I'm going down the list here. I think Mike Loxley, a former Nick Saban assistant, offensive coordinator, will be the guy for the job. I think Bama fans are going to be disappointed. Bama fans are about to be humbled. They're about to realize that the success they've had was way more about Nick Saban than Alabama. I think Nick Saban could have won those national titles at 15 to 20 top programs in the country. He was that great of a coach, and they got him at the perfect time. And I'm not saying Alabama's not a great job. It is, with a great history. They're going to have success, but I think it's going to take him a little while to get back to anything approaching a Nick Saban level of success. And I think they're going to get humbled a bit during this coaching search. And if I'm guessing right now, I'll go with Mike Loxley.
So here's my theory behind it. I think every school that can offer Alabama money will offer as much money as Alabama is offering, and that coach will take it. So Danny Lanning will get a new contract at Oregon. Steve Sarkisian will get a new contract at Texas. All these other coaches until they get to James Franklin, who I think would take a pay cut to go to Alabama. I think James Franklin will be the next coach at Alabama.
You know, the further it goes down the line, because I really thought when I threw out yesterday, the top five, and it's something funny, the pipe dreams of people saying, Kirby Smart. I'm thinking, yeah, okay.
Right.
Call Kirby Smart. He won't even answer the phone. He's not going to do it. DeMeco Ryans is staying in the NFL. Not going to do it. Mark them off the list. Dan Lanning, I thought, okay, seems somewhat realistic, but Oregon's not going to go down without a fight. That's not going to be easy at all. Then you get to Lane Kiffin, Dabo Swinney. I really think they're going to fall further down the list. And when I first saw it yesterday, the idea, I think the suit, Chase McCabe sent me a text with James Franklin's photo yesterday when the job came open. And I laughed. But the more I think about it, if you're getting down to Mike Loxley territory, James Franklin would not be the worst of picks. Certainly not the best. And I don't think anything that would get Alabama fans overly excited.
I think it'll be James Franklin. Last one. What school is best positioned in the SEC now behind Georgia?
Texas.
Really?
I think Texas and Steve Sarkisian.
Over LSU?
Yes. They've got Quinn Ewers coming back. If they can keep Arch Manning there, they'll have him the following year. They just went to the playoff. They were with Alabama in the college football playoff. I think Texas is positioned well behind Georgia. I think, LSU's up there. I don't think Oklahoma is going to be some pushover when they get to the SEC. I think Tennessee is in a good spot with Nico if he can look as good as he did in that bowl game moving forward. So those are the programs I'd put in competition. But I'm going Texas as that team that, if I'm picking one right now under Sark, I think they could emerge as the biggest threat to Georgia. But it's Georgia and then everyone else right now. Kirby Smart is now the Nick Saban, not just of the SEC, but of college football.
Chad Withrow from Outkick, as always, joining us, kind enough to move to Thursday. Chad, great stuff. Have a great weekend. Good stuff. We'll see you soon.
All right, great time. Thanks, Jared. Talk to you soon.
Yep, Chad Withrow joining us on the program. I actually was talking to somebody today. We talked about Mike Loxley at Alabama, but I do agree. I think Alabama fans are about to get humbled. It looks like Mike Vrabel's not going to the Patriots. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
all of a sudden, when you look at the coaching market, and I don't know whether Bill Belichick breaks free or not, but all of a sudden you look at the coaching market and you've got Mike Vrabel, perhaps Bill Belichick, and Jim Harbaugh on it. That is one of the best free agent coaching markets. And you might have Mike Tomlin. I doubt it, but you might. That's going to be one of the best free agent coaching markets, or at least one of the best markets for every TV network in America to go chasing successful coaches who maybe want to take a year off or maybe just want out. But I think, although the shock of this, I mean, here's a guy, Mike Vrabel, who has won 56 games in 6 years at a small market franchise. And yeah, he's gone 13 and 21 the last 2 years. So that's not good. But, he's a great coach. And in my opinion, he will not have any trouble finding a job.
There you go. That was Peter King. So I really, truly just was, if it looks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, chances are it's a duck. And so I figured Vrabel was going to the Patriots. And yet, this coming in from Ian Rappaport, when they tell you, like, they're telling you, they're not saying it, but they're telling you, Ian Rappaport, NFL Network, quote, sources, Gerard Mayo is a strong candidate to replace Bill Belichick, and if he is the choice, the Patriots could simply hire him. No need to go through the lengthy hiring process. They established a firm contractual succession plan in a prior contract and communicated it to the NFL. To which, apparently Rappaport said, has been done in the past in the NFL. It was done with the Ravens and Eric DaCosta, the GM, the Colts, Tony Dungy to Jim Caldwell, and the Seahawks with Jim Mora. And apparently simply the Patriots created a succession plan. For instance, the Raiders cannot do this with Antonio Pierce, Rappaport says, because he took over for McDaniels mid-year. Thus, they could not have known prior to the season and established it in his contract whether or not he was the successor. It sounds to me like Ian Rappaport is telling us Gerard Mayo is going to be the next coach. Well, if Gerard Mayo is the next coach of the Patriots, then where does Vrabel go? Now, Jordan Schultz at Bleacher Report put out there that Belichick is not going to Washington. And I was told on Monday that Washington very much was a potential landing spot for Mike Vrabel. But I can't imagine that Vrabel's going to not have a spot at the end of this musical chairs game, right? How many jobs are open right now, Ian? 7?
8.
8 jobs. Carolina, the Raiders, the Chargers, Tennessee, Atlanta, Washington, New England, and I'm missing one. Seattle. Okay. Now, how many top coordinators are absolutely getting jobs? Or, like, we know for sure get jobs. Harbaugh's getting a job, so now you're down to 7. Ben Johnson. Trying to think if there's any other, like, slam dunks. Mayo in this exercise, because we're going to say he goes to the Patriots.
Is Slowick a slam dunk?
Do you think Slowick's a slam dunk? I do.
I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of smoke there.
I think Slowick's a slam dunk. Slowick. Antonio Pierce is going to the Raiders.
Quinn, maybe?
Dan Quinn's probably a slam dunk. So now there's 2. Vrabel's got to be a slam dunk. My guess is, somebody brought this to my attention yesterday. Diana Rossini said that, like, she was talking to different sources, and there was a source with a team that was calling her about Vrabel, basically being like, hold on, we want to know about Vrabel, because if Vrabel gets fired, then we might fire our coach. And then when Pete Carroll got fired yesterday, the person said to me, do you think that was the team that Diana Rossini was referring to? So could Seattle have – I feel like if you're going to offload a coach like Pete Carroll for one specific guy, you better get that one specific guy. And I'm not completely convinced that they're going to get that one specific guy in Vrabel. But I can see Vrabel in Seattle. I just don't know. Like, here's my problem with Vrabel. Guys like Vrabel and Belichick, I don't think that they it's not that they don't think Mahomes is great. They do. But there's almost like this arrogance of, I can do that with Ryan Tannehill. And it's like, dude, I don't think you can. And so for him to do that in Seattle, I wonder if Seattle's going to hire Canales, the offensive coordinator in Tampa Bay. But I don't know. So I do wonder, though, if there is a chance that Mike Vrabel, when the dust settles, will not have a spot in the musical chairs. Stillman and Company, we roll along. 615-737-1025, 1025, 106 for the game. Predators on the road tomorrow at Dallas. Those are big ones. We'll actually be live at the brand new MGM Lounge out there at Bridgestone Arena tomorrow. Hal Gill will be with the team. He'll be on the broadcast. He joins us now, presented by Duncan. Hal, what the hell happened Tuesday night to the Predators?
Yeah, I think they laid a dud. I think that's the bottom line. That was the definition of a trap game, where they just came off a big win in Dallas, got home. You're comfortable at home. You feel like, okay, we're a good team and we're playing at home and we're playing a bad team. And, they maybe let that one slide through. And I think maybe looking forward to this game too much, just kind of, that's part of a young team's problem, is reproducing that effort every night. But I think we expected that at the beginning of the season. So I'm not worried about it. I think that's a learning point that they have to figure out. They're kind of on a roller coaster ride right now where they play great and then they have a stinker and then they play great again. But they're responding to the bad play, so it's not consistently bad. It's just not consistently good. So the good part is you can learn from both and move forward from it. And so I'm expecting a big bounce back game and a hard fought game tomorrow night.
Hal, are you worried about the goalie?
I don't worry about Juice. I think he's fighting it right now. He's a little out of sync. He's a little out of tune, but I think he's proven over his career that he's a gamer. He's focused. He's a competitor, and I think he's going to figure it out. I think it's just one of those things that you go through, and I think that's you look around the NHL. There's goalie problems everywhere, and the best goalies have problems. And the good part about the best goalies is that they figure it out, and you need a backup that's going to stand up and get things done. And I think Lankinen has been that guy. He had a great game in Dallas, so I think you rely on your backup when your number one is struggling a little bit. And I think you're going to go through that. I'm not worried about it. I think you should be concerned, but I think he's a professional. I think he knows his game well enough to get back to his form.
Hal Gill's presented by Duncan. Are you worried about the fact that when I look at the standings, the Preds are still in the first wildcard spot, but have games in hand on everybody? And when I start to do the math, it's like they really may not be in a very comfortable spot for the playoffs.
Yeah, Jared, you got to stop asking me if I'm worried about things. I'm not worried about anything. I'm living the life here.
You're not worried?
I'm not worried about anything.
All the games in hand that Arizona has and St. Louis has.
Like, if your team goes out there and runs the slate clean and wins 82 games, then you're never worried about anything, right? The fun part of it is watching your team go through struggles and try to figure it out, and the fun part is going through that ride with them. And as a player, when you're in the mix and you're in the battle, you don't get worried about things. You just try to solve problems and try to figure out what your team is. And I think that's the fun part. Like life is ups and downs, and you try to ride the wave and try to come out on top. So I think they've impressed me this year, and they're in a spot where they're competitive and they're fighting for a playoff spot and moving forward halfway through the season. And so there's a lot of young guys that are going to come around. I trust in that. There's going to be guys that are going to pop off the page soon, and I'm excited for that. And they have good veteran leadership, and so I do watch the standings, and I'm trying to see where they are and what they are as a team. But I'm more excited about what they could be, and I think that's where you have to look at. Okay, they lose some games, they win some games, but they're in the fight, and that's all you can ask for from this team.
Hal Gill, presented by Duncan. Last one for you. I won't say worried. I'll look forward of what could be. How big could this weekend be with the back-to-back Friday, Saturday?
Well, and going back to my point, I don't know if I necessarily worry about the wins. It would be awesome to get a win in Dallas, come home and have that last home game before you go on the road, and a big win on a Saturday night and smash. I mean, that's exciting. Against the Islanders, that's going to be a good test. But I think I'm more looking for the veterans stepping up after a loss. I think you need that. You need those guys to lead the way. But then I'm looking forward to other guys stepping up. And I know it was kind of a garbage game the other night, but I feel like, Tomasino stepped up, and these guys tried to battle and compete. And I think you're going to need those guys to step up. One of these young guys is going to carry the weight, and so I'm looking for them to be in pressure spots, and they're going to be in that against Dallas. They're going to be under the microscope. They know Cody Glass. They know these guys know what they need to do, and I'm waiting for one of these guys to step up. So I'm excited to see in a back-to-back situation against two good teams what they're going to bring to the table. So I'm excited about that, and I think if they do what they are as a team, when they play fast, when they play Bruno's Predators way, then I think they're going to have some success. So I'm excited to watch it.
Hal, we will be watching tomorrow night's game from the MGM Lounge, the brand new one tomorrow. I've never been there before. I haven't been there yet.
There the other night. I went up, and it is beautiful. It is really something else. TVs everywhere, really, really classy, really nice. A great spot to watch games. You can take in all the games when you're there, and they have good beer. So I'm a happy fan when I'm there.
So apparently we'll be giving away $50 gift cards every hour, I've been told, tomorrow on the program, which we should be very excited about. You have a good one in Dallas, and we will see you Saturday night before the Islanders.
All right, sounds good. Don't be worried. Just enjoy the ride, will you, buddy?
I won't worry any more about anything. Do you think that's possible?
No, I don't. But
it is not. Hal Gill, as always, joining us on the program, presented by Duncan. So the Predators don't play tonight. They play tomorrow at Dallas. Can I just say this? And I'm sure it's like a building schedule kind of thing. Tonight, I hate that there's no hockey game on. Like, what the hell am I supposed to watch? But tomorrow night, I think I'll be excited that hockey will be on. And we will be live from Bridgestone Arena from the brand new BetMGM Lounge tomorrow for Stillman and Company. We'll see you all at 2.